All right, we are live. Welcome. This is Orion Rising. I'm your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show. Show this out, show this out, show this out. It's Friday night, middle of one. Welcome. Denise, welcome. Share this out. Get everybody in here. Where are they? Tag them. Get them in here. Share this out. All right, let me take down this overlay here. Right, and take down, where's the overlay? There it is. Let me take that down. Put myself up in a full screen so you can see me. There we go. Okay, I didn't have time to do anything. Running. Still have a little bit of my lunch left that I was trying to eat madly just before we're going live. I'm getting stuff in my teeth now. I'll have to turn my camera off at some point and floss. Let me go back to the comments here. Okay. Brooke, welcome. Tina, welcome. All right. If you guys don't say hi in the chat, I don't know you're here. Otherwise, I'll just see numbers, right? So say hi in the chat if you're here. Share this out, share this out, share this out. Okay. So it's the law of one. I wasn't sure where we were at. I was scrambling because I was working behind the scenes while I was trying to work behind the scenes to get ready. And I wasn't sure what episode we were on. And my phone, I had 74, but I thought that we were on 74 last week. So I had to prime 75. Get it ready to go, and I got it ready to share, and then I went and decided I have a couple minutes. So I went and listened, realized that we were on 73 last week, so we're on 74, so I had to get rid of that one and grab the other one and put it up there, and I got it all right at the right time, but I was still chewing. So I apologize if at some point you see that I have something in my teeth because I haven't had time to floss. Got the floss sitting next to me, but I won't be doing that on camera because that's kind of rude. Right? Cassie, welcome. Okay, Penny, welcome. So, share this out to everybody, okay? So we are on session 74 this week on the law of one. So that's a good sign, right? That I found that because otherwise we would have just skipped. And I thought last week we had skipped 73 and found out that we didn't. And this week I almost skipped 74. Okay, so let's go ahead and just start in with doing a sound check so you can hear the law of one. We'll get started on that, and then we'll get going on everything there. And if you guys have any questions, please feel free to ask them in the chat. And hopefully, if I'm looking down at the camera and put on my glasses, I'll see the questions. I apologize. That's why we do the Q&A on Wednesday. And even then, I'm trying to look at the camera so you guys see my eyes, and I miss people putting their hands up on Zoom until a few minutes, and then I'll happen to look down, right? So that becomes an issue. I need a producer in my ear, and because I'm usually the producer that's talking in everybody's ear. At least I have been for a decade before doing my show. I was one of the producers that would be in the background working with people and talking in their ear, and then I started coming to the forefront, and I've been producing my own show. And the problem with that is I can't see the questions if I'm staring at the camera, so that you guys, and then that's why I take my glasses off too, so you can see my eyes when I'm talking instead of seeing just glare. And because of that, if I look down at the screen, I can't see the questions. And since you guys usually have a running conversation in there, I glance down and I miss questions because you guys are having a conversation, and it has nothing to do with asking me a question. And then when somebody asks a question, it moves up the screen so fast I never see it. That's just the way it works. Like psychics have the same problem, and people get mad at us if we're doing psychic readings. If you don't notice that somebody asked you a question in the chat and you got 30 or 40 people in there asking questions, and then people get mad. Hey, you ignored my question. Well, that doesn't mean that they ignored your question unless you saw them look down at it and not answer it. Then they went to somebody else or whatever. You know what I mean? Okay. So, but I've had that happen to me too, where I've said something and someone didn't answer me, and I'm looking at them. Did they ignore me, or did they just not see the question? So you just got to live with whatever you got going on. Thank you, Cassie. Start tagging those people. Where are they at? Get them in here. Holy cow. Share it in the Law of One chat and tag everyone in there. If you're on your cell phone, you can hit @ and then scroll down because it has all the names, scroll them all the way up the screen. The bottom one says everyone. You can click on that. And then everybody that doesn't have the notifications turned off will pop in. But then if you have somebody that has that turned off, you actually have to tag them by name. Otherwise, they won't get the notification. And Denise is over there on thank you for being over there. We're not live on Instagram. this week because I didn't have time. Because I have to prime that and go through an extra step. So I just went live on Facebook and YouTube and didn't go live on Instagram this week at all. But we are live on the MP4 broadcast, and we'll be on the MP3 broadcast as soon as the show's over for the rest of the world. Okay, so let me go ahead and start with the Law of One. We are on session 74 of the Law of One. Let's do a sound check. Let me know that you guys can hear it okay, and I'll check the sound here on my board and turn it up a little bit. But let me know if you can hear it okay, and then we'll just go ahead and start.
October 28th, 1981. 74.0 Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. 74.1 Questioner. Could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Ra. I am Ra. It is as previously stated. 74.2 Questioner. Before I get to new material, last session there seems to have been a small error that I corrected, then having to do with the statement, no working comes from it but only through it. Was this an error in transmission? Or what caused this problem? Ra. I am Ra. This instrument, while fully open to our narrowband contact, at times experiences a sudden strengthening of the distortion which you call pain. This weakens the contact momentarily. This type of increased distortion has been occurring in this instrument's bodily complex with more frequency in the time period which you may term the previous fortnight. Although it is not normally a phenomenon which causes difficulties in transmission, it did so twice in the previous working. Both times it was necessary to correct or rectify the contact. 74.3 Questioner.
Okay, I'm assuming you guys can hear it because I didn't see anybody say you guys can hear that. So if I wasn't sitting there with dead air, let me know. Okay, so Risen Nation, welcome. Risen Nation is over there on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in. Please share that YouTube out to your friends and family to get them over to that YouTube channel, Risen, and get them to subscribe and click, hit like, subscribe, and hit that little bell at the top of the screen. Right? So, okay, thank you, Denise. Okay, so let's just continue with the Law of One, right? So here we have Ra again, starting with checking on Carla's. He was such an attentive husband. He was a good man. Checking on her health and well-being and channeling abilities and the energy to make sure that she was okay to go forward because of being under psychic attack almost every session. He was making sure to take precautions to take care of his wife. Okay, let's continue.
Could you please describe the trance state, as I am somewhat confused with respect to how, when in trance, pain can affect the instrument, since I was of the opinion that there would be no feeling of pain of the bodily complex in the trance state? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. The instrument has no awareness of this or other sensations. However, we of RA use the yellow ray activated physical complex as a channel through which to speak. As the mind/body/spirit complex of the instrument leaves this physical shell in our keeping, it is finally adjusted to our contact.
You know, before we go further, I wanted to point out what he had just said. So Don asked if there was any physical pain and if Carla could feel that physical pain in a trance-like state. And Ra said no. She doesn't feel any pain or discomfort in a trance-like state. And you would think that if people learned that, right? Because I know that people have done that on their own, going in for surgery, and they put themselves in a trance-like state and had someone there that could verify that they were in a trance-like state, and then had a surgery done so they never felt anything and they didn't have to go under anesthetic, right? So you got to wonder if that's the case and people are aware of this around the world, why is it the medical profession never tries to teach people that? I wonder if it has something to do with our society wants you locked into this matrix and doesn't want you learning spirituality and to teach people how to put themselves in a trance-like state. For a surgery would be expanding their consciousness and allowing them to catch a glimpse at the reality about reality of this matrix. And we can't have that now, can we? So instead they drug you up and then they have you to have surgery. And the problem is you still feel the pain. You're just unaware of the pain because you're unconscious, but your body feels the pain and you feel the pain. And some people wake up from that pain if they're not fully under far enough and they can feel the pain of the surgery. And I remember my ex-brother-in-law was having shoulder surgery and they put him under, and he wasn't under far enough, and he could feel the pain of the surgery, but he was under far enough to where he couldn't tell them that he could still feel the pain. And he sat there feeling the entire pain of them cutting up and open his shoulder and working on his shoulder to reattach his tendon. The entire time he was conscious and could feel the pain the entire time with no painkillers, and because they had him under anesthetic, and they didn't have him far enough under where he didn't feel it, but he was far enough under where we could not tell them. And it was only after he was in recovery that he told them, I was awake and felt that the entire time. But he couldn't sue the hospital because they have you sign a waiver. And so you can't sue them because you sign away the right to sue them. So he couldn't sue them over not being proper and not having the anesthetic proper in his for that. And so they were just like, yeah, too bad. Yeah, you're done. Nothing you can do about it. So I heard that story from him, and it was horrific for him because he literally felt them with a scalpel cutting his arm open, his shoulder open, and splaying back the skin and moving his muscle tissue out of the way and resuturing and things and attaching and basically welding, because that's what they do. They tack weld your tendon back to the bone and then stapling him up. All of that, he felt all of that pain the entire surgery. Was awake for that the entire time, screaming in agony in his head, trying to wake himself up to be able to tell somebody. So they would rather have you go through that on accident and then try to convince you that that was a dream and that it wasn't real and that you didn't have that, and then your body go through that trauma. I've had surgery, many surgeries, 3 or 4 surgeries, and I have had trauma. Your body has a trauma after going through that, and then you have your lungs take a hit and you have problems because of the anesthetic. All of that is bad for you. However, it could all be solved if we were teaching people how to get into a trance-like state or a hypnotic state of mind and dull that pain on our own so that we wouldn't feel it, because they know that that is a thing because of scientific research, but they don't want you to do it because both of those techniques actually expand your consciousness. And they can't have you doing that in this place. So they can't even by accident have you realize that, oh, wow, this is something that if we have this ability, what other ability do I have? Can't have that. Think about that, guys. Think about that for a minute. That's how upside down our society is, okay? Let me continue here with this. We'll get into a question here.
However, the distortion which you call pain, when sufficiently severe, mitigates against proper contact and, when the increased distortion is violent, can cause the tuning of the channel to waver. This tuning must then be corrected, which we may do as the instrument offers us this opportunity freely. 74.4 Questioner. In a previous session there was a question on the archetypical mind that was not fully answered. I would like to continue with the answer to that question. Could you please continue with that, or would it be necessary for me to read the entire question over again? Ra, I am Ra. As a general practice, it is well to vibrate the query at the same space/time as the answer is desired.
Gotta love that, right? That means, please repeat the question. That's funny right there. That's snarky Raw for you, being all scientific. Let's continue.
However, in this case it is acceptable to us that a note be inserted at this point in your recording of these sound vibratory complexes referring to the location of the query in previous workings **. The query, though thoughtful, is in some degree falling short of the realization of the nature of the archetypical mind. We may not teach / learn
archetypical mind, archetypical. Some people say it that way. In archetypical, the way it's spelt, the computer. Gotta love that. All right, let's continue.
For any other to the extent that we become learn / teachers. Therefore, we shall make some general notations upon this interesting subject and allow the questioner to consider and further refine any queries. The archetypical mind may be defined as that mind which is peculiar to the logos of this planetary sphere. Thusly, unlike the great cosmic all-mind, it contains the material which it pleased the logos to offer as refinements to the great cosmic beingness. The archetypical mind, then, is that which contains all facets which may affect mind or experience. The magician was named as a significant archetype. However, it was not recognized that this portion of the archetypical mind represents not a portion of the deep subconscious but the conscious mind, and more especially the will. The archetype called by some the high priestess, then, is the corresponding intuitive or subconscious faculty. Let us observe the entity as it is in relationship to the archetypical mind. You may consider the possibilities of utilizing the correspondences between the mind/body/spirit in microcosm and the archetypical mind/body/spirit closely approaching the creator. For instance, in your ritual performed to purify this place, you use the term Vihigabera. It is a correct assumption that this is a portion or aspect of the one infinite creator. However, there are various correspondences with the archetypical mind which may be more and more refined by the adept. Vihigabera is the correspondence of Michael, of Mars, of the positive, of maleness. Vihigadula has correspondences to Jupiter, to femaleness.
So you would know those words as Kundalini and Kunda buffer. So masculine energy and feminine energy of the like the Celtic knotwork, right? You see that even with the Kundalini, you see that it's two serpents, not one. Kundalini, everyone says Kundalini like it's one energy, and the word Kundalini is a masculine energy, and the Kunda buffer is the feminine energy. They're using the Coptic word here, I believe, not the Sanskrit. So you're more probably familiar with the Sanskrit word, and that is Kundalini, Kunda buffer. Okay, and that is the energies. That's why I was saying men are like Mars, women are like Venus, right? Women are from Mars, men are from Mars, women are from Venus. Mars was the god of war. That's a Roman interpretation. God, and Venus was the god of love, so one was masculine, one was feminine, right? So you have a crossover right there with that terminology. But you guys would probably reckon, if you know anything about Eastern philosophical religious spirituality, you would know Kundalini. Most people don't know Kunda buffer. Kunda buffer is the feminine energy to the twin flame, the twin energies of that knotwork. The Celtic knotwork from the west of and north of Europe is their representation of the exact same energy, Kundalini, Kunda buffer. And then the yin and the yang, the Vesica Pisces of the yin and the yang from the Asians, or the Chinese and the Japanese, is that same energy where you have the dark and the light energy, and then you have the twin energy of each on the other side, and that's where it crosses the heart chakra. So that's the Vesica Pisces. That's what that is called when you don't have the yin and yang colors in there. When it's just the circle within a circle, right? Like that. When you see that, without my fingers, right? But when you see that shape, which is those two circles with a circle in the center, and if you turn that this way, up and down, the top, one of them is the upper three chakras above the heart. Then the other circle is the lower three chakras below the heart, and the circle that meets in the center is around the heart chakra, because the heart chakra controls all of those and works with those. So it aligns with, because even people that are in the flesh have love, they just have love for self. So they still activate the heart chakra. And then the people who are, which would be masculine energy, the lower three chakras, and then the upper three chakras is the feminine energies, which is the astral energy or the spirit energy or the soul energy, the wisdom, love, and compassion of the upper three chakras. And then the heart chakra rules that, because you have love for everyone else. So if you're in service to others, your heart chakra works the top more than the bottom. And if you're in service to self, the heart chakra works the bottom more than the heart. But even the people who are in service to self still get some use out of the top chakras for their wisdom and things like that, but it's all in a negative vibration. And this is what Ra is referring to here with those energies, and he's about to get into the details of balancing that. Chandra, welcome. Joanne, welcome. Did I miss anybody while I had my glasses off in the chat? If you're here in the chat, say hello. Otherwise, I don't know you're here. Show this out, show this out, show this out. Okay, so let's continue with what Ra's talking about here, okay, and those energies. So let's continue.
To the negative, to that portion of the tree of life concerned with Orion. We could go forward with more and more refinements of these two entries into the archetypical mind. We could discuss color correspondences, relationships with other archetypes, and so forth.
So here again, the archetypes that Ra is referring to are the chakras. Okay, each chakra represents one of the 7 archetypes of a human condition or the universe itself. Okay, everything in the universe, everything, a little ant, a flea, a bird, a fly, a mouse, a fish, a tree, a blade of grass, a plant, this piece of wood when it was alive as a tree. Everything has chakras. That is the building blocks to the universe itself. That's why when it rains and you see the sunlight, the light from the sun coming through in the daylight when there's no clouds, and you see water coming down from the sky, it breaks on the water in the sky as a prism, and it separates those colors of the chakras. The rainbow is the exact chakra colors, and it's inverted from our perspective down here because it's coming down from the sky. So the red ray root chakra is in the opposite position. It's at the top of the rainbow, and the violet color is at the bottom of the rainbow as it's bowing this way, okay? Because you're looking at it from this perspective as the water is coming down. So the energy coming from the sun is justified in that direction, so that it appears to be upside down to us here, whereas we're standing facing this way, and the red ray root chakra is at the base of our body, and then we have the violet ray at either the third eye or the one that's above that. So okay, so you have to realize that's what he's talking about. The archetypes are, because they are archetypes. So if you learn, even if you don't know what chakras are, if you learn the 7 archetypes, however you say that word, whichever dialect of English that you use or language that you use, it still means the same thing: potato, potato, tomato, tomato, archetype, archetype. But the computer is speaking and saying archetype a couple of times. Just said it properly a second ago. But that's the algorithm for you. They never figure out the proper way of. They're getting better with the programming these days, but this one's a little simpler. It's about 2 years old, so it still is a little off. But I use it because it's free, right? Because I own that one. Okay, so let's continue here. So that's what we're talking about: is the energy, and the tree of life is literally. And I've made reels about this where I show you that people see the tree of life and they think external. And like the Vikings used an actual tree as the tree of life. Nothing wrong with that, because the tree itself and the root system and then the branch system is showing you basically the human intricate system is the tree of life. So your nervous system, that all of the electronic impulses from your brain that goes out to your nerve endings is your tree of life. It's just internal to your body. Okay. And I've made reels about that to show you the different versions of the tree of life from different cultures and how they're all identical. And they're starting to expand, some faster than the others, to 10 chakras instead of 7. And that in the future, in the next 25 years, it's going to expand here on this earth to 12 chakras instead of 7. So people haven't actually gotten the idea of 10 yet, but they're starting to, because you're already seeing people add that chakra outside of the head here, which makes it an 8 chakras. But then if there's one above, as above, so below, there has to be one outside the body below that, which is already going to 9. And if you look at how many worlds are there in the pantheon of the Vikings, there's 7 worlds, but there's also other characters there, like the Kundalini snake going up the tree, the eagle and the crow, and Bifrost the Rainbow Bridge, which is the bridge between this place and your third eye, and where the heavens are. Okay, so then you have the Hebrews that already moved into 10 with their tree of life, and then So other people are already starting to add from 7 to realize 10, and so eventually by 2050 here, everyone's going to be talking about 12 chakras. So you're going to have instead of having 3 up and 3 down, you're going to have, more than that plus the heart chakra. So you're going to have at least 2 more, which is going to be 4. So that's instead of having 3, you're going to, 6. You're looking at 7, 8, 9, 10 right there. Plus the heart chakra is 11, and then there's going to be one more chakra, and then it's going to quickly get to 13, because you being the one is going to be the controlling factor. That's probably way too advanced for you guys right now to understand, but some of you out there can, and the average is getting close, and that's why I can tell you about it. Otherwise, I would have been stifled from even speaking just then. Okay, so now I'm going to check to see if you guys have any questions here, and then we'll let Raw talk while I look and see if I missed anything while I was staring at the camera with my glasses off. Maybe I should just do this all the time and look like Santa Claus and look over my glasses at the camera and put them down here and do this business looking at the thing, right?
This is the work of the adept, not the teach/learner. We may only suggest that there are systems of study which may address themselves to the aspects of the archetypical mind, and it is well to choose one and study carefully. It is more nearly well if the adept go beyond whatever has been written and make such correspondences that the archetype can be called upon at will. Asterisk C 67.28. 74.5 Questioner. I have a question here that I am going to answer and let you correct. I see that the disciplines of the personality feed the indigo ray energy center and affect the power of the white magician by unblocking the lower energy centers and allowing for a free flow of the upward spiraling light to reach the indigo center. Is this correct?
Now, you have to understand here, too, I forgot to mention that because Dawn talked about the magician earlier. He's referring back to the original deck of tarot cards. And if you were on 2 weeks ago, I talked about that because we were talking about tarot cards for the episode, and 2 weeks before that. And then they're going to get back into that again. They're going to start touching on that. The original tarot cards were drafted because of the chakras. They were created that way. In fact, Ra created the first tarot cards, right? But here on Earth, they have like this idea of where it was created the first time. But the truth is, it was so the people of Egypt will tell you they came out of Egypt first, and then moved out to all of the other people around the Earth. That part is true because Ra was the one who created the first deck and gave it to the people of Egypt. And then now we have that. Since then, the deck of cards that you play, the regular deck of cards, is based on that. That was to hide the tarot cards, the ones that had the pictures on it. That was to hide those so that they could do readings on people. And if they were living in a society where that was illegal, because of the people were trying to stifle anybody from any spiritual practice. And then if you were living under any of the churches that were trying to keep people in an orthodox manner towards their church, they would not allow divination of any kind. So they made the playing cards that we currently have, which if you look at that, there are 4 decks and there are four suits. But there are, if you look at the suits plus the Jack, the Queen, and the King, and the Ace, that turns into 7 archetypes. And then you have the different aspects, which we would now know as like cups and wands or swords and stuff like that. And so you have the diamonds, the hearts, the spades, and the clubs, which coincide. And anybody who knows anything about tarot cards will know that probably history of the regular playing cards. So then the games that people were playing were to hide if they were doing a reading, and they would have cards on the table, and some cards would be flipped over and others weren't. So they were playing. They would, if somebody came over and said, well, what are you doing? We're just playing a game. We have these cards. Well, what? And then it caught on. People wanted to play games. So they actually invented games, and now we have gambling because of card games and other card games that you don't gamble with. And all of that was created out of different layouts for doing card readings, and they had to mask that they were doing card readings because they'd be put to death in some countries throughout history. You guys could look that up if you don't know the answer to that already. Some of you who do card readings probably know the history of that, and you know what I'm telling you. So the original deck was actually invented by Ra when they were here 12,000 years ago, and they gave it to the Egyptians, and the Egyptians eventually that went out to the rest of the world. Dice were the same way, from people rolling the bones to do divination. And they said the same thing. Oh, we're just playing a game. It's a kid's game that we're playing. And the next thing you know, people wanted to bet on it because anybody that, evil people could take something and start betting on it, they started doing it. Game of chance. And that's how it went. But it was always, it always came from divination. It just depends on the country that it came from, where the bones were more European. And then the tarot cards were more Middle Eastern in origin, but they were doing the same thing, scrying and divination. And doing readings on people by casting the bones. And that's why dice are white with the dots on them, because they were originally carved on bone, right? Not a joke, okay? And then, what is there? There's 6 numbers on the dice, plus the dice itself makes 7. That's the archetypes, the chakras. And if you had suits, right, your suits are what? 2 2s, 2 3s, 2 4s, 4 4s. There's your suits that are in the deck of cards. 2, 3, 4, 5, right? And then they would have different colored dice. And eventually they just, they used to have the dice that were red and the dice that were black. And eventually the red dice kind of died out, but they're still around in some places where you have dice that have red color and black color in the dots. Originally they were that way, red and black dots. And so you had suits, and it was the same exact archetype, but it turned into just games. And eventually they got rid of the red and only kept the white dice with the black dots in them, 1 through 6. And people just don't know now. You play dice and you're playing a game with dice and you have no idea, Yahtzee or something like that, that the reason that those are in existence is because people actually used them at one point to do scrying and divination with. Okay, let's continue. So they're referring to the archetypes of the chakras, but Dawn's using his knowledge of the card deck to talk about a specific chakra archetype right here in this sentence that we're listening to. Okay.
Ra, I am Ra. No. 74.6 Questioner, would you please correct me? Ra, I am Ra. The indigo center is indeed most important for the work of the adept. However, it cannot, no matter how crystallized, correct to any extent.
I used to have, Cassie said, I want to get, I have that up on the screen for you there. I want to get bone runes myself. I used to have some. It's illegal in the United States to get runes that are actually on bone these days. You have to get them from outside the country. And if you have them shipped into America, you can get in trouble for it. But you can get runes that look like they're on bone, because you used to be able to get them on ivory, because like dominoes, again, same thing. What are the suits in dominoes? Same numbers. Used to also be for scrying and reading, and that used to be on ivory or bone. And they started making both of those things because ivory is a bone that, from the tusks of elephants. So you can't do that stuff anymore, but you can get runes. I used to have a set of runes, but when I got divorced, they stayed with my wife. But I used to have that. Same thing with like what Chandra was saying, that anything can be used for divination. People do that where you take a rock, stone of some sort that you are drawn to, that you like the energy of, or that you want to put energy in, and people, attach a chain to it, and then it becomes what do we call that? A pendulum. Same concept. That's the same tool to do the same thing. You can do readings with it. You can do scrying with it. You can do divination with it. Same thing. You can do it with just about anything. She's absolutely right. That's why people like trip on a Ouija board, and I'm like, you can make a Ouija board out of just your mind and do the same thing. The girls in the Czech Republic, the Pedrozkas, who have been channeling the extraterrestrial entity, EBE, extraterrestrial biological entity known as Oli, since 1995 or 1994. They've been doing that, and they actually have a homemade one that they make literally just with paper and a pencil. And they just literally just draw it, and then I don't know what her sister uses, for I think a thimble that she has that she uses, for the scrying tool, and then her sister sits there and writes down as she's, people ask a question, and she's giving the answer, and her sister is writing everything out as she's doing it, and then hands it to people or reads it out to the people. But they're over in the Czech Republic. So she always had to translate everything to me because my Czech is not that good. It's like my 10th language on the learning scale, down 10 from English being my first language, right? But I'm getting better over the years, but she's gotten better at English faster. So she translates everything for me and sends it to me in English so that I can see what they're talking about. Okay. So let's continue here.
And whatsoever imbalances or blockages in other energy centers, they must needs be cleared seriatim from red upwards. 74.7 Questioner, I'm not sure if I understand this. The question is, how do disciplines of the personality feed the indigo ray energy center and affect the power of the white magician? Does that question make sense? Ra, I am Ra. Yes. 74.8 Questioner, would you answer it please? Ra, I am Ra. We would be happy to answer this query. We understood the previous query as being of other import. The indigo ray is the ray of the adept. A great deal of the answer you seek is in this sentence. There is an identification between the crystallization of that energy center and the improvement of the working of the mind/body/spirit as it begins to transcend space/time balancing and to enter the combined realms of space/time and time/space. 74.9 Questioner, let me see if I have a wrong opinion here of the effect of disciplines of the personality. I was assuming that a discipline of the personality shall we say, have a balanced attitude toward a single fellow entity would properly clear and balance, to some extent, the orange ray energy center. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. We cannot say that you speak incorrectly, but merely less than completely. The disciplined personality, when faced with another self, has all centers balanced according to its unique balance. Thusly, the other self looks in a mirror seeing itself. 74.10 Questioner. Now, the disciplines of the personality I see as the paramount work of any who have become consciously aware of the process of evolution. Am I correct on that statement? Ra, I am Ra. Quite.
Yeah.
74.11 Questioner. Now, what I am trying to get at is how these disciplines affect the energy centers and the power, shall I say, of the white magician. Will you tell me how that works? Ra, I am Ra. The heart of the discipline of the personality is threefold. 1. Know yourself. 2. Accept yourself. 3. Become the creator. The third step is that step which, when accomplished, renders one the most humble servant of all, transparent in personality and completely able to know and accept other selves. In relation to the pursuit of the magical working, the continuing discipline of the personality involves the adept in knowing itself, accepting itself, and thus clearing the path towards the great indigo gateway to the creator. To become the creator is to become all that there is. There is then no personality in the sense with which the adept begins its learn/teaching.
Right? Yeah, Chandra, when Ra was known as the Patal, that was when the creation of the genome. I was just talking about this the other day. People are starting to wake up to realize that the genome that makes up the human condition on this planet, and 24% of the known universe, is humanoid, with some slight variances like color of the eyes and skin, right? We have that here, right? With the brown people, black people, yellow people, red people, pink people, polka dotted people like me, where I'm multiple colors. I have every color from every single human species on my body because I have freckles. So I have every race's, so when people are like, you're racist, I'm like, I can't be racist. Any race that I would not like, I have that skin color on my body. I'm just not covered completely in it. So how can I be racist towards a skin color when that would be, you don't like black people. You mean that spot and 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 that spot, right? So I hate that spot in myself. I still have it on me. See, but beyond that, this human condition that is the one that's on this planet is a conglomeration of 7 different species. There's that archetypes again, 7 chakras, 7 archetypes, 7 different species to make this one humanoid, and 24% of the universe is humanoid. We like this form. We like to play with this form. So yeah, right. But yeah, Cassie, yeah, it didn't go past me about this, talking about the balancing of the sacral chakra right here, and what that implies, right? So let's continue that. But yeah, you should look, Chandra, you should look into. There's a video I can send you that Raw, and I know this because I'm part of that collective. That's one of the reasons why I do the Law of One, because I'm down here on Earth, and so is a few of the other people that are in this audience right now. They come from the Raw collective, and they are what people down here know as starting to learn and have only heard the word for about maybe 10 years now, the Patal, okay? Although the computer that says it in the video comes out like Patal, but it's Patal, P-A/T-A-A-L, Patal. And the creation of a lot of the races came from the Patal about 12 trillion years ago when it started, and then 12 million years ago when it was solidified in a lot of places in this universe that we're currently residing in, beyond the Milky Way galaxy, this universe, beyond the Milky Way galaxy as well. Okay, let's continue.
As the consciousness of the indigo ray becomes more crystalline, more work may be done. More may be expressed from intelligent infinity.
Get my Santa look on.
74.12 Questioner. You stated that a working of service to others has the potential of alerting a great mass of light strength. Could you describe just exactly how this works? And
yeah, Chandra, there's some videos that I'll have to send you a couple of them. It's from this group of people that are putting together these videos, and they're using AI to do it. And they tell you in there so there's a disclaimer that these stories that we're telling you are not 100% accurate. So I gave a couple of the videos to a few people, and I said I can tell you where the flaws are in that storyline. So I think it's AI that's creating it, because it appears to me when I'm watching the videos. But the story is very close in like the Lyrans and the Lyran War, the Orion Wars, all of that stuff. And there's like everything is covered, the Anunnaki and everything, but not on those videos. They have like 30 or 40 videos right now that they've been doing for like the last year that they're making, and they put them out. And I could send you those talking about the Patal and the Lyran war with the Draconians and how they came into being. But it's all done from a non-spiritual standpoint. That's what I tell people. You have to realize it's all going to be done in a third dimensional political atmosphere. So there is no spiritual, and you're getting visuals of flesh bodies that are third dimensional bodies when it comes to, because some of them are those races that are third dimensional, but they're not talking to you about, they're kind of giving you a story that is coming from the 11th density. But when they're showing the people from the 11th density who are in fact only energy there, they're giving you the same physical body, not a light body, to do so. And so that's a problem for anybody who's high enough vibration and awake enough to know what's going on. If you have access to the Akashic Record or Halls of Amente, the library, whatever you call that, whatever you know that as, if you have access to that, you know the flaws, you'll immediately go, okay, it's close enough for government work for beginners. It's close enough because that's what they're going to understand, because they're not going to be on an understanding schedule of their beingness. So they'll be on a understanding, and that understanding is the physical third dimensional plane. So I understand that or understand that the videos were made as a guide for the children, but it still tells the story close enough to to the reality that it doesn't take much for someone like myself who is not veiled at all, someone who is unveiled, to go, here's the slight things that are not accurate there. One of which I just explained to you, that they don't, everything is physical body on no matter what level that they talk about. And they talk about the Patal coming from the 11th dimension, which is wrong, because there is no dimensionality in the 11th level or octave. It then is all energy. So you're outside of the possibility of a plane of existence for us to even visualize that and see it. For instance, the Council of Planets, the Galactic Council, is on Venus right now. And then there's some that are in the rings of Saturn. We can look there all we want with whatever telescope that we have. We'll never see any life forms there, because they're not in physical form in a way that we can see it, because we're in third dimension with third dimensional whatever, radio telescopes, long distance telescopes or whatever, visually looking at film footage when we send a probe there and having pictures coming back. That's all third dimensional vibration, and it's only going to pick up third dimensional reality. So literally, existing right here in right where you are, wherever you are on the planet right now, there is another entire species of people living on this earth currently that is occupying this exact space that we're occupying, but they're outside of our spectrum of being even to interact with them or bump into them. So I could literally be sitting here, and somebody could be sitting in a place right here, or standing. I could be in the middle of the street in this other reality, because it's the actual fourth density, not what everybody thinks is 4D where we're moving into. It actually is, but it's outside of this realm. And when we change to that reality, no one's going to notice the difference except for wanderers anyway. And that's already starting to happen, freaking people out. They call it the Mandela effect. And there are people already starting to freak out about it. The ones who can remember the timelines, and they go, wait, I remember this way and this way. How come I have both? I don't just remember it the new way. I remember it the way that people are saying that it's no longer exists. How is that possible? And everyone's like, oh no, it was the government and the CERN, and they're up to no. Those people are scared to death. They don't know what's going on. It's not them. They wish that they were doing it. It's not them. That's why they're trying to stifle everybody, because those things are happening as we're fixing this place. And as we're fixing it, we're changing the timeline back to where the timeline is supposed to be and was more than 65,000 years ago when this whole thing changed. Okay. So all of that is righting itself, and we will blend in with this 4D place, but there's not going to be that Christian rapture where the plane's going to fall out of the sky because the pilot was picked up by Jesus in a bus as he flew by in his Volkswagen Beetle, and as he flies by, and grab him, he's on the list, and let the rest of them die. They're left behind anyway. They get to all die, right? So none of that's going to happen. That was propagated by people that are evil to try and drive people to be afraid. And the churches were using it as a control mechanism to go, to say the Santa Claus story. So be good for goodness sake, because Santa Claus is coming to town, right? That's the same story. Be good for goodness sake, because Jesus is coming back, and you don't know when, because it says in the Bible, I'll come as a thief in the night. That's not what that meant. That meant your awakening will happen like a thief in the night. You will have no idea when your awakening is going to happen, no matter how hard you look for it, no matter how hard you want to pierce the veil. You're going to be pushing and wondering where it is and where is it, and I'm going to look for everything, and I'm going to try and figure it out. I'm going to wake up, man. I'm going to wake up. And then you can't wake up, and you go, okay, screw it. I'm done. I'm just going to let it happen. And then one day you go to sleep, or you're just sitting there, and all of a sudden, it dawns on you. It becomes apparent to you. A light goes on in your head. All of a sudden you go, wait a minute. And then that's when God returns like a thief in the night. All of a sudden, you're no longer veiled. In an instant, you're no longer veiled. First, it is piercing the veil and starting to realize these things. And then the veil is gone, and it doesn't happen slowly. The piercing of the veil happens slowly, and it's difficult, and it's confusing, and it's hard, and it's annoying, and it's frustrating because it doesn't happen fast enough, and you can start seeing through it. And you're like, I can almost see everything, man. And then you're like, I can see a little bit more, and I'm doing so hard, and nothing's happening. And then all of a sudden you're like, where'd the veil go? Am I awake? Am I unveiled, or did I just get veiled again? And then you start looking around, and that's when you realize you have access to all of that information at will. You can, while sitting watching television, be it the Akashic Records, going through files, if you manifest it that way in your head. And that's what all of that meant in all of these Bibles, right? So the energy or the archetypes that we're talking about here, and specifically they're talking about the orange ray center, the sacral chakra, and talking about how that can help balance all of the chakras, because all chakras, and that's why I stopped here and took as long as I did to get here, all chakras do the same thing in the balancing of all other chakras. Different archetypes have a larger or lesser effect on a person depending on where they are. And I'm not talking to Chandra now because I know she knows this. I'm talking to the rest of the world out there that may not know this. Okay, I should have specified that because I know that Chandra does know this, right? So she'd be like, why is he telling me this? I know this. So most of you in the audience right now already know this. But what you have is as you get the chakra balanced properly, and it starts to crystalline, starts to become a crystalline chakra, and you do that and you balance all of the chakras, which can only be done truly from the heart, but it also has to be from the wisdom. So you have to have everything balanced to have it working properly. But what Ra's getting to here is, because the question is, how is it that the white magician or the adept wizard or the magi, someone who is a learned one and a wise one, how is it that they can be more powerful in this place? Now, specifically in this place means the bottom three chakras. And of the bottom three chakras, we know that the yellow ray is going to be more egoic than, and the red ray will be more egoic than the orange ray, because the orange ray, being the sacral, is in between the two of those, like the heart is in between the three upper and three lower. Okay, so that's where we have that, and why that information is saying that sacral chakra sort of balances the other two, that it is in between on the lower side, but that can only happen through the heart as well. So you'll see Ra get to that, right? So the sacral chakra sort of balances the bottom three, And then the same thing happens when you go up from the heart, right? Then you go where? What's the next chakra? The throat chakra, and then the third eye chakra, and then the crown chakra. So your third eye chakra is in between these two chakras. So it balances these two chakras, but it also has to work in concurrence with the heart, because the heart is the one that balances the upper and lower as a totality, the bottom three and top three. So for the whole totality of a spiritual being and the beingness, it comes from the heart. But without the third eye and without the sacral, you don't have the as much balance and harmony with the bottom three and the upper three. Do you see? So it's literally every in between every group is the one that is there's where your 3, 6, and 9 would be, even though the 3, 6, and 9 is actually your red ray root chakra, the heart chakra, and your crown chakra. Okay, that's 3, 6, 9. Right. And if you've ever read the Emerald Tablets of Thoth, you know that, because in their the Emerald Tablets of Thoth is saying that the gods, not archetypes, the gods that rule man are 3, 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8, 9. Those are the chakras that we inadvertently have let them corrupt us into believing that it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, when in fact their names are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, and that is the positioning that aligns with the 3, 6, and 9, which aligns with that control of 1 through 7, but that also goes 1 to 9, right? And then if you go expand that in math, and now I'm going to go to a real high vibration again. If you expand that into math, then it goes from 9 to what is the next level? 3, 6, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13, 14, 15. And when you keep going, it ends up going to 24, which is 12 and 12. So now you expand out. So the 12 is the equivalent of the bottom 3 chakras. And then the other 12 is the equivalent of the top 3 chakras. And then they would hit the Vesica Pisces overlapping. And where would that be? What's halfway between 12 and 12, right? Do you see? Or it would be 12 and 12. Do you see? So again, and then in math, the enigma of 24 is that the Fibonacci spiral goes up to 24, and then it repeats like 3, 6, and 9, where the 9 hex boson energy repeats back down to 0. In mathematics, when you get to 24, the Fibonacci spiral flips over on itself and repeats the same way do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do happens. Same spiral, same Fibonacci sequence, same golden mean ratio. So the enigma of 24 is the expansion in the physical plane of the chakras from 7. Originally there were 4, and then we got the idea that there were 7 to 10, and then to 12, and then it's going to jump when you realize 12. It's going to more than likely double at that point, because once you get to 12D thinking or 12 chakra thinking, you're into 5D, real 5D. And then you're going to immediately double that because of masculine, feminine once again. And then it only doubles from that point. Then it doubles again. So it's 12 and 12 is 24, and then 48, and then 72 or whatever that turns out to be, right? It's not 72, it's 56 or whatever that is. I'd have to do the math real quick. But then it literally just keeps doubling by 24. So it goes 12, 12, and when you hit the 24, it just doubles. From that point up, it just continues to double by 24 at a time. Mathematics is that way, and physics is figuring that out. So when aliens came here in different times, the first thing they said to people was, you're counting wrong, because you're counting in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 as 1 and 0, and then you're going 11, 12, 13, 14, when you should be counting by 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 before you repeat. And if you do that, you go 12, 24, exactly what I was just describing. So aliens came here and said that. So when people said aliens don't exist, and somebody just made up the aliens, whoever made those aliens up actually understands the universe itself and how the universe works, because correcting people that we should be counting by 12, not by 10, but people don't understand 12 because the numbers aren't even, and 10 makes it easy to go 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. So people that have a low IQ who are a childlike mind, which is the average person between mentally between age 11 and 14, which is 99% of the entire population of Earth, no matter how old their physical body is. They're between 11 and 14 years of age mentally. It's easier for them to figure out math by going 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. They have a hard enough time as it is with that. And realizing 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, rounding everything to the double digit or to the next component of 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. Do you see? That's the basic, most easiest mathematical concept that can be out there, because children get it if you try to, but that's only if you keep everyone stifled in a childlike mind, which is what they've done here, which is why this place is stuck. And this is what Ra is talking about. But Ra is talking about the archetypes now. So we're talking about the energy, not the frequency or the vibration. But he's going to get into that because he's not making a differentiation between energy, frequency, and vibration. He's talking about that as a totality. And this is why I just spent the last, whatever I've been talking for almost 30 minutes to cut that out for you. Because if you do actually know the chakras, you have to realize that each chakra is an energy, frequency, and vibration. Okay. And most people who know about chakras know that. The universe itself operates the same way. Nikola Tesla, before he died at the turn of the century, said, well, it was the maybe mid-century, mid-20th century. He said, do you want to know the secret to the universe? Think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration. That is literally 369. Energy, frequency, vibration, 369. Okay. And that's also the progression of moving from the physical energy to the astral or to the spiritual energy, frequency, to vibration, which is the spiritual, away from above astral, but into the spiritual or the realization that you are in fact energy, right? And so that comes back down. There's the circle that you are in fact energy, light energy, and that's when the only way that you start to realize that is when you move into that thinking, and now you've expanded yourself to the 12, away from the 9, and you're really getting to the 24, and you're starting over. That's when you go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. The realization that I am not this physical body, but I am energy creates the circle, completes the circle back to do. I don't know if that makes sense to anybody. Any mathematicians or physicists that were in the audience are going to go, dude. Anybody that's on a spiritual level only and you don't know math, they're going to go, I have no idea what you just said. So I apologize if anybody out there got confused with that. All right, let's continue here.
What the uses of this would be. Ra, I am Ra. There are sound vibratory complexes which act much like the dialing of your telephone. When they are appropriately vibrated with accompanying will and concentration, it is as though many upon your metaphysical or inner planes received a telephone call. This call they answer by their attention to your working. 74.13 Questioner. There are many of these. The ones most obvious in our society are those used in the church rather than those used by the magical adept. What is the difference in the effect of those used, say, in the church, in our various churches, and those specifically magical incantations used by the adept? Ra, I am Ra. If all in your churches were adepts consciously full of will, of seeking, of concentration, of conscious knowledge of the calling, there would be no difference. The efficacy of the calling is a function of the magical qualities of those who call, that is, their desire to seek the altered state of consciousness desired. 74.14 Questioner. In selecting a protective ritual, we finally agreed upon the banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram. I assume that these sound vibratory complexes are the type you speak for the alerting of those on the inner planes. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 74.15 Questioner. If we had constructed a ritual of our own with words used for the first time in the sequence of protection, what would have been the relative merit of this with respect to the ritual that we chose? Ra, I am Ra. It would be less. In constructing ritual, it is well to study the body of written work which is available for names of positive or service to others power are available. 74.16 Question.
Why do you think it's called spelling? Right? This is the secret that they called the secret back in the 90s. Listen to what Ra just said there. Make sure that you're using the correct verbiage, the correct words that have the correct energy that you need for something that you're writing. Okay? Because you're programmed to say things like, I understand. Do you understand me? That means, do you stand under me? Do you submit to my will? That's a negative connotation that you so lightly say because you've been programmed to say it. That's why you hear people saying, I don't stand under anyone. I understand, because you don't stand under someone. There are many words in our vocabulary in every language that we use that are negative in their energy and what they actually mean when you're saying that. Like citizen means slave, and you can look that up. It's base root. If you look it up on Google, you're going to get the answer they want you to have. But if you actually look it up and go and find a hardcover book that was a dictionary that was, like a King James version of a dictionary, or the King James version of the Bible that is still in print, that's not been a revised edition to a New American Christian Bible, because they made sure that all the words in there are completely different. Well, we did that so that people that understand the words, because they didn't understand the way it was written in that style. Then why don't you teach them what that means in that style? Because they would have to teach you what those words mean, right? And when people start interpreting those words, like people like me that do that, interpret those words to you, then people go, wait a minute, that changes everything. Like a really simple one, right? Jesus, when he was alive, Mary Magdalene was his companion. Today, that word means buddy. That word means pal, someone I'm just hanging out with. 2,000 years ago, that literally meant spouse in the language that it was written in. Okay? It did not mean friend. It did not mean companion, buddy. It meant wife. Okay? So just the wording in and of itself, original wording that was that word that meant Mary Magdalene was Jesus's companion, that meant wife. Okay? So Mary Magdalene was Jesus's wife. But when you say that to people, they're like, that's not what that means. It doesn't mean that now, because that word has evolved in 2,000 years to mean buddy, pal, someone that's traveling with you. But that's not what that word meant at the time that it was written. Okay? So lost in translation, right? That word that you're hearing, first of all, has been translated from the original Sanskrit, because it wasn't written originally in Pharisee, but then it was translated into that, and Coptic, and then from Coptic to either Greek or Latin, or from Sanskrit or from Yiddish to Greek or Latin. And if you went to Greek and then it went to Latin, then it went to English. If it didn't go to Greek, it went straight to Latin and then straight to English. And it could have gone to German or French or somebody else before it got to English, okay, in the translations. So people don't realize that. They just take for granted that the word is the word, right? The word is the word, like in the song, right? The word is the word is the word. No, it's not. Words mean different things to different cultures. Even the words that we use in this English language, which is actually 5 different languages combined into one. We speak a mishmash of 5 different languages. There's words that we use in this language that mean something completely different in the language that it came from, okay? Like the word force, for instance, right? I force you to do something, right? I am a force to be reckoned with, right? We use a double meaning for some of our words, not because it means those things, but because it does in other languages. The word force, or say like we have armored division, right? Armored division in the military in English, okay? That word doesn't mean that in German. The word for armored in German is Panzer, okay? We wouldn't say Panzer because it sounds too close to panther, right? So we use a different word, but they mean the same thing in 2 different languages. And the word force means something different to where that word was invented by the Germans for a concept of something different, which is strength. Okay, so if I force you to do something, the Germans don't have that version of that word, because I don't strength you to do something, but in a sense it's there because the concept of strength and forcing someone to do something is bending them to your will. Do you understand? Do you stand under me? Do you see? So those are negative words that mean negative things and have negative energy, whether you're aware of it or not. And this is what Ra is talking about here. If you're going to write a spell, and I used to do this for a living, I used to charge people money to write spells with a disclaimer before you paid me that you took on the karmic bond to the words that you had me write. And that by paying me, and agreeing to the payment, that meant you were also agreeing to the terms of that contract, which was you take all karmic debt. So if I write a spell for you and you use it against somebody's will because you're actually in service to others, you get the karmic debt, not me. So you have to be very, and this is what I would teach my students, you have to be very diligent about the choice of words you use and whether that word has a negative connotation to the universe. Just because you don't think it's negative, well, my intention was that it wasn't negative. Okay, it's not what you say, it's what they hear. So your intention could be one thing, but the universe, this matrix that is here, is going to pick up the wording that you say and the intention of the wording that you say. So you have to not only have your intention, that's the 3 energy, 369, the charm of making, but the words that you use also have to be the same intention that you have, so that then the energy that you create for the words, when you create the words, they have the same harmonic resonance and the same focus. Then you can take your potentiation of a spell or a sentence and an idea and add your intention to it again for what you're writing it for, to have that outcome, and that becomes a spell. That's called spelling. So when people are writing something out, you're spelling words. That's because you're casting a spell. People don't even realize that. When you're writing something down and you're repeating it back, you're casting a spell and you're spelling it out for yourself. And they're creating the spell that you're then going to voice with your intentions or with your words or both. And you're putting energy into that. So you have to become aware of all of that. And that's what Ross is talking about here. Let's continue.
I will make an analogy to the loudness of ringing of the telephone and using the ritual as the efficiency of the practitioners using the ritual. Now, I see several things affect.
Peter, welcome. I didn't see you. Cherry, welcome. I didn't see you either, right? Did I miss anybody? Brooke's back. Welcome. No, Brooke just started talking again. Okay, let's continue.
The efficiency of the ritual. First, the desire of the practitioners to serve, their ability to invoke the magical personality, their ability to visualize while performing the ritual, and let me ask you as to the relative importance of those items and how each may be intensified. Ra, I am Ra. This query borders upon overspecificity. It is most important for the adept to feel its own growth as teach/learner. We may only say that you correctly surmise the paramount import of the magical personality. This is a study in itself. With the appropriate emotional will, polarity, and purity, work may be done with or without proper sound vibration complexes. However, there is no need for the blunt instrument when the scalpel is available. 74.17 Questioner,
Right, you don't need to hit somebody over the head with a baseball bat when you can be precise and decisive with what you're doing. You don't have to club somebody to death, unless that's all you know.
Assume that the reason that the rituals that have been used previously are of effect is that these words have built a bias in consciousness of those who have worked in these areas, so that those who are of the distortion of mind that we seek will respond to the imprint in consciousness of these series of words. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra.
Mostly.
This is, to a great extent, correct. The exception is the sounding of some of what you call your Hebrew and some of what you call your Sanskrit vowels. These sound vibration complexes have power before time and space and represent configurations of light which built all that there is. 74.18 Questioner, why do these sounds have this property?
Right, so just exactly what I was saying. Depending on what the original writing of something, what languages it was in and what it meant to those people is something that you need to know before you do this. So you have to be very precise in the verbiage that you use. And now this is what Ra is going to explain. And if you know anything about language, you know that certain vowels are spoken differently, and it changes the vibration of a word, the harmonics of a word, and sometimes changes what the word means by adding a hyphen to have the word go up or down when the vowel go up or down when you say it, as opposed to just a vowel like most English letters have no accent mark to say at an upward or downward motion. And so that changes the energy, a positive or negative, up or down, to a sound. Most of the European languages have those. Most of the Latin languages have those. English doesn't have them. Why was it taken off? why did all of the vowels sounds go flat in English? Why did they do that? People still say them a little bit different, but there's no hyphens that say that that is supposed to sound like that. So the positive and negative, masculine and feminine of the English language was pulled off of the English language. This language was designed for the slaves. Okay? This language that I'm speaking now in all of its forms on this earth was designed for the simple-minded children to be kept in this matrix and never understand the harmonic resonance of language. When you hear other languages being spoken, even when you don't recognize the language or know that language, you think, wow, that's beautiful. Okay. One of my ex-wives was literally, I don't know where she was, bank store. I think she said she was at a bank, standing in line at a bank. And there was another woman, another teller standing in line at the bank. And she was on her cell phone and she was talking in a language that my ex-wife didn't recognize. And she thought, wow, that's a beautiful language. I wonder what she's speaking. So when they both went and got done and she went over and they were both leaving and she went up and said, excuse me, I'm sorry to bother you, but you were on your phone before and you were talking to somebody and I couldn't help but overhear you. And I thought that language was so beautiful when I was listening to you speak. What was it that you were speaking? And she was speaking Arabic. Okay. But Arabic is a very old language. Okay, very old. It's one of the oldest languages that we still have on like Hindu, Hindi, Sanskrit, Yiddish, Hebrew, and the like. Those are very old. Coptic, even Greek, Egyptian. Those are very old languages. English, the modern English that we speak right now is the third evolution of English. There was Old English, Middle English, and then current modern English. So this language is only, in the form that we're speaking now, it's only about 800 years old, if that. Okay? It's only about 800 years old. The way that people spoke in the 1500s is different than the way we speak English today, different language. Not just reading Shakespeare and the style that they spoke, right? That was a literary style at the time that they used that was a throwback to before. But if you've ever heard Old English or Middle English spoken, you see that the further back you go, the more harmonic it is. And it was changed. And it wasn't changed by natural course because we have that goes on in every country that you're at where you have your own slang. Okay. But your country still refuses to acknowledge your slang that you have as the official language that you speak. Why? Because the powers that should not be that are running the governments of these countries that are teaching you the languages, specifically English, the other languages are ancient, and most of those countries, even if they're run by dictators, they're trying to keep that language the way it was for thousands of years. The older languages have had a tradition of holding on to that language. English is not that old, and it is designed around the harmonics of C, which is not the proper harmonic resonance. It's G major to G and to G flat, okay, or G flat and G minor. That is more perfect. And to the Om sound, Om is not C. Om is G, okay? But they've tuned all instruments to C the same way English is tuned to C, because that is the wrong vibration and the most evil vibration that you could possibly have. You can look this up. People are like, well, but C is beautiful. It is if you speak English, because you're used to C. What I'm speaking right now is resonating from C and the range above and below C as I speak, but mostly C and staying in the range of C flat, C minor, C major. Okay. That's why your harmonic resonance of music it goes so beautiful with what? The English language. Yeah. When you get away from that and you start listening to composers in Europe who composed before everything was slashed to C, you see that they have different composures to A, G, D, minors, majors. Rarely do you see anyone compose anything in other than contemporary in C. Why? Because they were tuned and their language was tuned to G, to where the Om is, to the perfect harmonic resonance to the universe, to this matrix, and to the world. And then there was a time on this planet when all of that was changed. Okay, and you should look into that. That's why I call my book The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. Okay, that's why it's titled that, and that's why that is what it's about. It's about when people got the knowledge, when they changed it on this earth, and what that effect has been on the people, and why, and what you need to know to help yourself fix that. And Raw's talking about that now. All right, so let me look and see if you guys had any questions while I was. Jamie, hi. I didn't see you there, so welcome. At least I didn't have my glasses on and didn't realize that you were in the audience or saying anything. All right, let's continue.
Ra, I am Ra. The correspondence in vibratory complex is mathematical. At this time we have enough transferred energy for one full query. 74.19 Questioner, how did the users of these sounds, Sanskrit and Hebrew, determine what these sounds were? Ra, I am Ra. In the case of the Hebrew, that entity known as Yahweh aided this knowledge through impression upon the material of genetic coding, which became language, as you call it. In the case of Sanskrit, the sound vibrations are pure due to the lack of previous what you call alphabet or letter naming. Thus the sound vibration complexes seemed to fall into places from the logos. This was a more, shall we say, natural or unaided situation or process. We would at this time make note of the incident in the previous working where our contact was incorrectly placed for a short period and was then corrected. In the exercise of the fire you may see the initial spiral clockwise from the green ray energy center, through the shoulders and head, then through the elbows, then to the left hand. The channel had been corrected before the remainder of this answer was completed. Is there a brief query at this time? 74.20 Questioner.
So literally they lost contact with Carla for a second, and the contact was reestablished from the heart chakra, out from the heart chakra in a spiral, and then eventually he said you may have felt it or saw it go from the heart chakra through the shoulders and then through the head and then through the elbow. So it was literally went in a spiral out from the heart chakra and like tuning and reestablish the communication with Carla. And that's what Rod just said. Okay, let's continue here.
Is there anything that we can do to make the instrument more comfortable or improve the contact? RAH, I am Ra. All is well. The instrument continues in some pain, as...
Wait, okay, so Chandra, you said, I'm sure you've taught this previously, but I've always wondered how the class asked and obtained Ra's answers. So what they did was, if you're talking about when they were actually channeling, what they did was the scribe, whose name I forget right now because there was a couple of different ones. Originally it was Leonard, my namesake, but he left, and there was another one I can't think of his name. But Dawn, all three of them, Dawn, Carla, and him, prior to each session, determine the questions that they want to ask, and they have them written down. And Dawn is asking the questions that they all write down. Sometimes it's just Dawn comes up with them and wants to ask a certain grouping of questions to talk about things. So after they listen to the session that they record and get the answers, if they want clarification, they start writing the questions down in the order that they want to get clarification. And then Dawn asks the question while Carla's in a trance. Dawn speaks the question to Carla, who's in the trance, and Carla's channeling Ra, and then Ra speaks through Carla, just like a channel, just like people channeling today. And they're recording that. She has because at the time it was 1981 to 84, she has a cassette recorder with a microphone sitting on her chest, recording all of the conversation. And then they put it to a transcript, which is what I'm using for this computer program. I get the transcript from their website and then plug it into my computer program. My computer program says and speaks what you guys hear, which comes from the actual transcripts printed from the audio tapes of their question and answer session. I'm not sure if that was what your question was. So if I didn't answer that properly, specify if there was another, here I'm starting to talk like Ra, specify if there was another query that I can answer. Rick, welcome. I didn't see you there until just now. I didn't see you say anything until just now. So, but that's how that process worked. They determined the questions ahead of time for each session, and then they would go through all the questions that they have. And sometimes they would not ask all the questions that they wanted to ask because they would run out of time, because the sessions were 30 to 45 minutes each session. So if they didn't get to the end of all the questions, then they would carry those over to the next session, and then add questions. This you'll hear sometimes Ross or Dawn will say, in the last session we talked about this. Could you specify more on that, going back to a question they didn't get answered or asked of Raw in the previous session, to continue that line of questioning and the communication. So that's how it was done. That's how all the questions came up. And there was a lot of times when I was like, he should have asked this and he should have asked that and should have asked this and he didn't. So as someone who literally worked and interviewed people for 4 years or so, and then worked as a producer for 10 years prior to that, behind the scenes, I was used to lining up the same things and going, here's questions you need to talk about. When I interviewed Giorgio Tsoukalos 7 years ago, because I'm 57 now and I was 50 then, I was 49 about to turn 50. I worked with his staff and we came up with the line of questioning for the entire session that I was going to record with him or be live with him on air, because we were doing a show on air on Ancient Aliens Worldwide and across the internet on Facebook and YouTube and stuff, and literally for an hour or for 30 minutes, but we went an hour. So we started early because he decided he wanted to do an hour just before the Ancient Aliens on History Channel went live in the United States for that season. So we were on the air talking. We did that 2 times, one with Giorgio Tsoukalos and one with, I think it was it Gary? No, it was, Gary Hasseltine, who was the investigator for the British government, who investigated the incident at Rendlesham Forest with that UFO. And we also interviewed the Peniston, who was the United States airman who was there and touched the UFO, and his buddy his buddy wrote a book, Gary, who wrote a book about that. We interviewed him as well, and we did the same thing because the next season was going to start, and Hasseltine's episode was about Rendlesham Forest, which was episode 1 in season 12, I think, of History Channel's Ancient Aliens, and we went live and talked about it for an hour. And then at the end of the show, as we were wrapping, said, now go and turn on History Channel. And his episode is about to go live to the United States for the season opener of this season's show. And then we would kick it off to History Channel, and they would go live with the television show right on time. So we would have to end on a hard break at the 5-minute mark because of commercials and stuff like that. I would end at 5 minutes to which would have then been 8 p.m. on the East Coast. So that it would have been 5 p.m. here at 5 minutes to 5. And then we would shut down and go to a break, and everybody could go off of the internet and turn on the History Channel. And then their commercial break would be over and the episode would start. Right. So we coordinated that 3 times to do the same thing. Right. So the questioning, my point is, getting back on point, all the line of questioning is determined ahead of time. And a lot of people don't know that. So, but with Giorgio, we went through in the first 30 minutes, all the questions. And he told me if we get done with all the questions, because he liked me, he said, just fire more questions at me and we'll keep going. So we ended up 30 minutes in because we didn't have any interruptions or anybody else asking questions, because everybody was just paying attention to what he was saying, that I ran out of questions. But I just started interviewing him and continued to go. And we were promoting at that time, they were doing History Channel's Ancient Aliens was doing a cruise on a big giant sailing yacht, sailing boat of Croatia every year. And they would have people could buy tickets and go on that cruise. And all the guys from Ancient Aliens would be on the cruise as well. And they would speak there to the audiences. And then you could hang out with them. And then they would go to different ports over in Croatia, and you could hop off of the boat, off the ship, and then go and take a tour with them. And all of that was paid for. And they ended up canceling, and I was going to go on that cruise because I would have turned 50 while we were on the cruise, and we were going to go live on the cruise on my 50th birthday with Giorgio Tsoukalos. He and I put this together before we went on air that day. but they ended up having to cancel because everybody was either sick, had to have oral surgery, and other things. And so nobody, except for Giorgio Tsoukalos from the Ancient Aliens team, could actually go on the cruise. So they canceled that year, and that sucked because it would have been cool to have my 50th birthday party with the Ancient Aliens crew on a sailboat in Croatia, live on air, with Giorgio Tsoukalos partying with me. And it was his idea. Dude, we can do your 50th birthday on air. I was like, I'm in, right? So we were going to be live on air from Croatia on my 50th birthday, doing an episode of Ancient Aliens from the ship, and we didn't get to do it because they canceled. So, okay. All right. So let's continue here because we can finish this session and move to the next session and start that because we only got 20 seconds here left in this one. So let's go ahead and finish this, and I'll prime up the next session, and we'll go ahead and start that one today.
Do you call this distortion? The neck area remains most distorted, although the changes have been, to a small degree, helpful. The alignments are good. We would leave you now, my friends, in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. Go forth, then, glorying and rejoicing in the power and in the peace of the one infinite creator. Adonai.
What's up, Peter? Peter was trying to figure out, he said, what is the language that you're speaking? Angorian? Or who are you talking to? Were you talking to me? Did I break into a different language, or did somebody else break into a different language? Or is he making fun that because Rick said hoochie coochie? Maybe, right? Oh, no, I see. Okay, so I had to go back and see what Peter said. He said, I have a friend. He's a taxi driver, and he's Indian from India, and he speaks, what is that? He's saying his language is not translating. He's saying arena. No, that's not, yeah. He speaks the language. It's amazing that every time he speaks with the words are found, they're so beautiful, right? Because they're harmonic, Pete. That's why. And so he was probably speaking, Arabic is probably what he was trying to say, that he was speaking Arabic. And yeah, Arabic is still harmonic because the language that they speak in Arabic today is still the same language that they spoke 1,000 years ago in Arabic. There's the same, for the same reason that we in America have our own slang, West Coast slang, East Coast slang, North, South slang, and North slang, just like every other country does. I know that in Ireland, it's the same way. The people in the west of Ireland, the people in the east of Ireland make fun of the people in the west because their accent is so much thicker, and it's a thicker brogue than the Irish spoken in the east. And I know that your dialect that you speak, people say because you're closer to the border on the north, and you have a really thick accent, which is almost Western accent that you speak with. But I'm sure I'll offend you by saying that, but it is a northern accent. But the people in the north above that, say across the line, that are in the UK, in those counties that used to belong to Ireland, they don't have that same dialect because they don't allow them to learn Irish in that country. The English don't allow the Irish to learn Irish. So they don't allow them to have the Irish accent. Their accent is more English sounding. And I remember when Pamela heard you and she said that that's a very interesting accent that you have. And other people had said that too. So even in Ireland, there's the same thing. So because of that, those things happen regionally, but the official language of a country, they try to keep and not allow it to evolve too much, right? Because they're proud of that. That's like, Spanish, what people call Spanish, or Mexican is really Spanglish. If you speak Mexican from Mexico, the people from Spain who actually speak Castilian, they'll tell you that. It's not Spanish, it's Castilian, but you could translate it to the word, well, that means Spanish. But then again, the people who are in Germany don't speak German. Ask them. They speak. They're in the country of what is the country? Dansk? No, that's the Viking word for it. That's the Swedish word for it, right? So Deutsch, right? They're in Deutschland, right? And so they speak Deutsch. And so people in English will say, well, that means German. It does, but it doesn't, right? And then if you're Norwegian or Swedish, it's Tyskland, Tysk. And so it depends on the country that you're in. Those concepts mean those, but the words are different. But the concept is still the same, right? German, Deutsch doesn't actually mean German. Right? And Deutschland means German country, land of Germany, land of Germanic people. So that's why, because of that, we use the word German. But they won't say that. They don't say, unless they're trying to be nice to you so you'll understand them. They don't say, I'm from Germany. They only say that if they know you will not understand if they say they're from Deutschland. Right? So the word and what it meant to the people is vital, and a little more, a little bit more meaningful and harmonic when you hear them with a more ancient language other than this English language that we use. And I talk in a way that drives the English nuts, and in a way that drives the Irish nuts, and in a way that drives the Australians nuts, because I speak with this North American English accent that the Canadians and the Americans use, and I'm still not 100%. The Canadians get annoyed. So every region gets annoyed with the other and laughs at them because of their dialect, right? But you have to understand that these old languages, they kept them.
October 31st.
They kept them. Sorry, I'm trying to prime up the thing here so we could start, and I'm playing it there. So let me prime it up. So the older dialects have more harmonic resonance than English does. Ours is so flat, and it's just C, and it's just brutal to the ears of people that come from a very harmonic language. It's brutal to them to hear English, and to try and learn it is confusing, because our words don't resonate the way their words do. And even when you translate it into their word, they're like, it doesn't sound right, and it doesn't mean that it means. So their words are a little bit more conceptual, whereas English, our words are too, but we don't have the masculine and feminine vowels, and we don't have masculine and feminine words. We use pronouns, and that's why the pronoun thing only really works in English speaking countries. I go by, my pronoun is cat, that because a pronoun doesn't work in a language that has masculine and feminine verbs and adverbs and vowel sounds. Okay, doesn't work. It's just stupid. It's just silly. If you have a pronoun of he, she, or they, them in those cultures, because the words, even they, them, are going to take a feminine if you're a feminine, or a masculine if you're a masculine. All right, let me do a sound check on this session, and let me know if you guys can hear it okay, and we'll start that, right?
October 31st, 1981. 75.0 Ra. I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. 75.1 Questioner. Could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Ra. I am Ra.
So hopefully you guys can hear that. Rick said it's double Dutch to me. That's funny right there. I don't care who you are. That's hilarious. Okay, so let's. I'm hoping that you guys can hear that. Okay, you guys. Sounds good. Penny, thank you. Denise, giving me a thumbs up. All right, let me go ahead and continue then.
It is as previously stated, with some slight lessening of the reserve of vital energy due to mental/emotional distortions regarding what you call the future. 75.2 Questioner. I felt that this session was advisable before the instrument has her hospital experience. She wished to ask a few questions, if possible, about those. First, is there anything that the instrument or we might do to improve the hospital experience or to aid the instrument in any way with respect to this? Ra. I am Ra. Yes. There are ways of aiding the mental/emotional state of this entity with the notation that this is so only for this entity or one of like distortions. There is also a general thing which may be accomplished to improve the location, which is called the hospital. The first aiding has to do with the vibration of the ritual with which this entity is most familiar and which this entity has long used to distort its perception of the one infinite creator. This is an helpful thing at any point in the diurnal period, but is especially helpful as your sun body removes itself from your local site. The general improvement of the place of the performance of the ritual of the purification of the place is known. We may note that the distortion towards love, as you call this spiritual/emotional complex which is felt by each for this entity, will be of aid whether this is expressed or unmanifest, as there is no protection greater than love. 75.3 Questioner. Do you mean that it would be valuable to perform the banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram in the room that she will be occupying in the hospital? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. 75.4 Questioner. I was wondering about the operating room. That might be very difficult. Would it be helpful there? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. We may note that it is always helpful. Therefore, It is not easy to posit a query to which you would not receive the answer which we offer. This does not indicate that it is essential to purify a place. The power of visualization may aid in your support where you cannot intrude in your physical form. 75.5 Questioner: I see the way to do this as a visualization of the operating room and a visualization of the three of us per.
Right. So Sherry says, then I hit the wrong one because Cassie started talking. We'll figure out what Cassie was talking about. Let me rewind that then. Okay. And we'll cover that. Sorry, I didn't see that if you had asked that before. Right. But Sherry said, I find that swearing in any language sounds low vibration. Yes, because it is low vibration. Right. So let me back it up here because I had to jump up and wake up my mom and I actually missed what they were talking about, was just kind of letting it play. So let me rewind that, Cassie. Thank you for stopping me right there. And we'll rewind that. I'm going to rewind that, right? I'm going to go take it right back to I'll just take it back to the beginning. All right. And then we'll just start over because I had to jump up and I missed everything that Raw was talking about that Dawn was asking. So let me start it over and we'll see where they're covering that here. And then I'll get into the description. Okay. Thank you for that, actually doing that, because I wasn't paying attention just then. And I was waving at my mom when I woke her up and said, she looked at me like, why did you go over and bug me? And I was waving at her, and now she's watching TV. All right, let me start over.
October 31st, 1981. 75.0 Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and in the light of the one infinite creator. We communicate now. 75.1 Questioner: could you first please give me the condition of the instrument? Ra, I am Ra. It is as previously stated, with some slight lessening of the reserve of vital energy due to mental/emotional distortions regarding what you call the future. 75.2 Questioner: I felt that this session was advisable before the instrument has her hospital experience. She wished to ask a few questions, if possible, about those. First, is there anything that the instrument or we might do to improve the hospital experience or to aid the instrument in any way with respect to this? Ra, I am Ra. Yes. There are ways of aiding the mental/emotional state of this entity with the notation that this is so only for this entity or one of like distortions. There is also a general thing which may be accomplished to improve the location, which is called the hospital. The first aiding has to do with the vibration of the ritual with which this entity is most familiar and which this entity has long used to distort its perception of the one infinite creator. This is an helpful thing at any point in the diurnal period, but is especially helpful as your sun body removes itself from your local site. The general improvement of the place of the performance of the ritual of the purification of the place is known. We may note that the distortion towards love, as you call this spiritual/emotional complex which is felt by each for this entity, will be of aid whether this is expressed or unmanifest, as there is no protection greater than love. 75.3 Questioner: do you mean that it would be valuable to perform the banishing ritual of the lesser pentagram in the room that she will be occupying in the hospital? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct.
Yeah, so that's exactly, Joanne answered your question. So they're talking about cleansing the hospital room. So Joanne said exactly what that was: cleansing of the operating room, the hospital, before she. So what they're doing is literally they're cleansing it, and they're setting up a bubble in their protection, so that while Carla is going through surgery, an assassin in a different dimension, or using spiritual attack or however you know that concept, can't get in there and kill her. The same thing, Cassie, happened to me because I didn't do that when I went in for my hernia surgery. And I've told that story. I go in for emergency hernia surgery and I didn't do any cleansing or any of that. I didn't create a barrier or anything. And as they were hitting me with the gas, they put the thing on me, and the person stopped holding it to my face, and they all started talking, and it moved off of my face, so I wasn't getting as much gas. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to be unconscious, and they're going to start cutting on me in a minute. I need to let them know that it's not on me. And so I was trying to get their attention, and finally I reached up, because I wasn't supposed to. I had my arms out, and they were about ready to strap my arms down. I reached up and grabbed it and said, "This is not on me." And they were like, "Oh, here." And they put it back on my face. While that was happening, I noticed that the room was a lot more full of people than it was a second ago. And I had attributed it to I was half out from the gas that they were putting me under, so that I didn't realize that I was thinking that I was imagining what was going on, and that the room was full of people, a little bit more full than before. And I just thought it was just me, like while I was going out. However, as this was happening, Renee, the born intuitive who lives in New York at the time, is all of a sudden standing next to me, and she leans over me and she says, "They're trying to kill you, and I'm here with help. We're defending you. You're going to be okay." And I was like, that's weird. Why did I bring Renee into my what is now I'm thinking is a dream, right? That's funny. I'll have to remember this when I wake up. I hope I remember this so I can talk to Renee and tell her that I was out. Okay. Then I come to in recovery, and I'm sitting there and I'm not remembering this right away because you're trying to get ungroggy and breathe and wake up, and you're cuckoo. And then when they took me back, by the time they took me back to my room and I was in bed, I was like, wow, that was weird. Why did I bring Renee into my dream? That's funny. I wonder why I did that. I'll have to tell her that. My phone rings. And I reach over and look at it. It's Renee. Hey, it's the phone. That's crazy. Dude, I was just in surgery for emergency surgery, and you were in my dream. And she goes, that was not a dream. Did you see me in the emergency room? And I said, yeah, are you not in New York? And she says, no, I'm in New York, but they were trying to kill you. An assassin was trying to kill you. And I was pulled in astrologically out of my body to come and assist you. And you brought a team of people. They came in, a team of people that work for you, grabbed me and brought me in to help defend you, to let you know, because I could communicate with you better than they could at this moment. So I was brought in to tell you that we were there to defend you because they were going to murder you while you were on the emergency room table. And I was like, wait, so that was real? And she was like, yes. And I'm like, they tried to kill me? And she's like, yes, they tried to murder you just now. An assassin was trying to kill you, and we surrounded your emergency room table, standing in and around those doctors and nurses and everybody, and we defended you against any negative energy as a barrier of energy to stifle them from trying to kill you. They were going to murder you you were supposed to die on the operating table. And I was like, wow, okay, thank you, right? So literally, if you don't do that and you are in this kind of business, so if you ever have to have surgery and you have to go unconscious, you need to make sure that you're aware of what's happening, because if you become a target, they will do something to try and make it look natural, that you have a heart attack or something and die on the emergency room or table or on the operating table, because no one's going to question it. They went in for surgery and they died through complications of surgery. No one's going to even notice that someone tried to kill you. That's a thing in real life. That's a thing. Okay. Happened to me. How long ago was that now? I was here in California, so it was less than 8 years ago. So it was probably 6 years ago, 5 years ago that happened to me here when I was here in California. Okay. 5 or 6 years ago now that happened. And they tried to kill me. Okay. So, and the other things happened, like 3 years ago, coming up in March, on March 2nd, it'll be 3 years ago. I had to have surgery on my foot because I had a ulcer on the bottom of my foot because I'm a recovering alcoholic. But 3 years ago, I was still a full-blown alcoholic. I drank a lot of alcohol at the end of the night. I'd put my mom to bed and I would sit around and drink and stay up until 2 or 3 in the morning drinking alcohol. Okay, so I got a blister on the bottom of my foot and turned into a ulcer. And that ulcer almost went to the bone, and they had to go in and do surgery. I had 7 surgeries over a course of 8 days on my foot because I'm not going to get into that full story. But while I was there, I was in a room, and a doctor came in and was checking me out, and then going to change my IV bag or something, and I had other nurses running around doing stuff. And my phone rang, okay? And I answered my phone, and I went, hello? And I never answer my phone with my cell phone up into my ear. I always turn it on speaker. So I answer the phone, and on the other end of the phone is this. And they hung up. That was it. And as that happened, I went, okay, that happened. I looked up and the nurse or the doctor went, what the fuck was that? Is that like a friend or a family member of yours? And I said, nope, don't have any idea who that number was. It was blocked number, and I answered it anyways. Whoever it was hated me. And she's like, yeah, you think? That was evil, and that was hatred, and it was pointed at you. And I'm like, yeah, if you knew what I did for a living, you would understand why that just happened to me. Okay. So that stuff, Fiona, welcome. So that stuff actually happens. So if you're in the industry as a light worker and you're going to be unconscious in a public place, like going for surgery where it's possible that you could die on the operating table, you need to make sure that you create a defensive bubble to reflect all negative energy and pull it out of the room and literally pull it and learn to make that space, cast that circle large enough to encompass all of the people and drive the negative energy out of anybody that might be easily swayed by a negative entity to accidentally let you die. Okay. Just trusting people to take care of you isn't enough. And I wasn't thinking about it because I was fighting for my life because I had a strangulated hernia and I was on the clock and I was almost at the 12-hour mark. They thought when they opened me up, they thought I was going to have to cut out a lot of my intestines. And when the doctor untwisted my intestines, they all went back to a beautiful pink color, and he pumped his fist. He said he was in the operating room and he went, yes, because I wasn't going to lose any of my intestines. But they were concerned of how long it had been strangulated, that I was close to doing permanent damage or dying. And they were emergency surgery. We're getting you into surgery right now. And so that was an opportunity that they were going to use to kill me. So an assassin was here in the astral, not physically present for them to see, outside of the vibration here, but I could see that, but didn't see that person who was hiding. And I saw my team of people who showed up when I was going unconscious and thought that it was a delusion, that it was just something that because of the anesthetic that I was making up in my mind and just, half in, half out, and just, having a delusion, a dream. And then when I woke up and it was her on the phone, knowing I was awake, knowing I was out of surgery, called me on my phone, knowing I would be there. And I answered the phone to say, you're welcome. Are you okay? Did you see me there? Because you looked like you saw me. And I was like, yeah, but I thought it was a dream. No, that happened and they were trying to kill you. Okay. So Fiona says, I went through something like this about 2 years ago. Let me put it up on the screen and I'll read it for those of you who are on the MP3 broadcast. You can't see that, so I'll read it to you. Fiona Ellis said, I went through something like this about 2 years ago where I hemorrhaged and they couldn't stop the bleeding. And my doctor said that they nearly lost me after I went for a walk to get, what is the thing that you're saying that you're putting up there? I can't see the image. To get water. Is that what that is? On my way back, sorry, I'm colorblind, and it's it's almost the same color as the background when it's highlighted. And so I can't see it unless I look on the screen over here, and it looks like you're saying water. Went to get water on my way back to my room. I had someone put my right side, my body, trying to drag me backwards, and I was gasping for air. Right, so something happened. Right, that happens. Right, that does happen. Brooke said, "Thank goodness that they didn't take you away, Leo." Yeah, right. There would have been a loss there. I would have thinking the same thing. I would have been on the other side trying to figure out, design my next life. Crap, I'm gone out of this one. Now I got to start all over and go back down. I would have come through again, right? It took me a while to design this life to make sure I was unveiled in it, right? So that would have been all bad. But apparently it wasn't supposed to be in the cards. The universe was like, nope, not happening, right? So, yeah, sometimes people will see that as a mundane thing and go, maybe the hospital's haunted. And that's what lower vibration, that's all they can grasp to. So they'll go, yeah, it must be, there's a ghost in here. So maybe the ghost grabbed you. And then people would say that was a delusion that I saw that. But the fact that she called me and asked me if I saw her there. And I was like, yeah. And I thought that was a dream. No, I was really there. They were trying to kill you. And I want to make sure that you were okay. I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I did see you. And thank you. because I thought there was a lot of people in the room. She said, you have a pretty good sized team and a lot of people showed up, but none of them were able to communicate with you. So they grabbed me because we had worked together. I was the one who woke her up. When one of the groups that I still have, but I renamed it, returning to the old ways, it was called Psychic Reading and Development. And we used to do psychic readings there, and we would teach people to have whatever skills they wanted to have, psychic skills. And we gave them that place to be able to do readings on people, whichever way they wanted to do it, cards, whatever they wanted to use, dice, runes, whatever. We would teach you how to develop your extrasensory perception skills, and then you could practice on people there. And Renee, the Born Intuitive, she's out there in the world still. She came in one night and posted a picture of herself and said, "Can I get a reading?" And I said, "Are you joking?" She goes, No, I'm not. I would really like a reading." I said, "You should be reading me." And she said, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "You have abilities already intact. You're just not using them. All you have to do is turn them on." She's like, "Wait, what?" And I said, "Oh my God, you are really, really powerful and really strong, and you have these super amount of abilities already activated. You're just not paying attention to them." And she was like, "Okay, you're joking, right?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." I'm like, "Let me help you with that. I can help you." And she was like, "You're serious?" I said, "Yeah." So I ended up working with her, and she was like, "Oh my God, I when I was a kid, I used to have these abilities." Apparently my mom was basically, got to talk about those things. Stop talking about that. And your imaginary friends, you need to stop talking. Don't tell anybody about that. She said, I turned it off, and I didn't know about it until I said to my mom, "This guy just said this to me, and now I'm working with him." And her mom was like, "You had abilities when you were a kid, but we, didn't want you to talk about that." And so she was then able to turn everything back on. And then she's out teaching the world now and working with the world, last I heard anyway. And that was 10 years ago when I first met her. And then 6 years ago when I tried to kill me, and she helped me to not die on the emergency room table. Okay. So you got to remember that's a thing, people. And this is why I was teaching before. And I did episodes 1, 2, and 3 of the Defense Against the Dark Arts, 1, 2, and 3, coming from the Harry Potter books and movies. To get people's attention, and got a lot of people that came in to watch those. But we would teach you that, and we did that in that group. The 8 or 9 years that we had that group as that psychic development group, we did that in there because we would want to teach you, but then we would also teach you, now that you're developing skills and you're in service to others, and you're going to go out there and start working with the public and helping people, you need to realize that you're going to become a target, and you need to know how to defend yourself. So we would start teaching that as well to them, so that they were better equipped to go out to the world and not have somebody do something to where it just looks normal, and you end up getting hurt, or your life is horrible, or you get people following you, spirits following you, or somebody goes after you and you're unaware of it. And that happens more often than people realize. Okay, let's continue here.
75.4 Questioner, I was wondering about the operating room. That might be very difficult. Would it be helpful there? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. We may note that it is always helpful. Therefore, it is not easy to posit a query to which you would not receive the answer which we offer. This does not indicate that it is essential to purify a place. The power of visualization may aid in your support where you cannot intrude in your physical form.
I agree, Penny. I think that's something that we do need to do going forward. I would love to be able to do that and get other people to help do that, to teach people. Right? Penny said we need to teach this and do classes again. Agreed. 100%. Agreed. I think we do need to do that, right? So let's continue here. I'm reading some of the stuff you guys are saying in the chat.
75.5 Questioner, I see the way to do this as a visualization of the operating room and a visualization of the three of us performing the banishing ritual in the room as we perform it in another location. Is this the correct procedure? Ra, I am Ra. This is one correct method of achieving your desired configuration.
Yeah, Fiona, make sure that you do that. Make sure you understand. If you don't know how to do that, contact myself on Messenger, and I'll help you prep for that beforehand. But if you do, make sure that you, when you get into the emergency room, you don't have to, no one else has to know what you're doing. I can teach you how to do it with thought so that nobody has to realize that you're doing that if you're self-conscious about that. You can cleanse the room, push out all negative energy, and set up a grid or set up a bubble around the entire room, and also pull all negative intent and energy out of any person, even if they're in service to self. They won't like you because they'll sense that, but they won't be able to do any harm to you. Okay? So you can't control who's going to be in service to self that might be in the room. The doctor, the orderlies, the nurses, the anesthesiologist, they have choices to make, but you can protect yourself so they can't just murder you. And people that are in service to self could be affected by an assassin to make a mistake and harm you. And, like the anesthesiologist putting you too far under, so you die under anesthetic. That happens sometimes. Or the doctor to do something that you die from because you bleed out or you have a heart attack or those kind of things. So if you don't know how to do that, contact me before you go into surgery, and I can help you with that or put you in contact with somebody who can. There's many people out there. You can, even if you know somebody that knows how to do it, you can do that yourself without contacting me. And if you do know how to do it, just make sure you do it. Remember that. Don't forget. Make sure that you do it when you're in the operating room, before they put you under. Make sure that you do that and take care of yourself, because you don't know who's going to be in there, right? You don't know who's going to be in there. So, yeah, I see. So Penny and Brooke, looks like you guys would both want to come in there and learn that stuff. So we'll have to figure that out and work on that, guys. And we'll have to start. This is some of the stuff that we want to do in this next phase, where we're going to start helping people to understand this stuff. Because if we're going to be waking you guys up, you have to also know how to defend yourselves, right? So I want to do that, right? Well, it's kind of that way. I'm reading the stuff in the chat, guys. Those around the world that can't see what I'm doing here. So Sherry says, I feel attacked the greatest when life is impossible at every turn, that I feel removing myself from Earth is the only answer. Well, sometimes that happens because of the state of mind that you're in. The state of mind that you're in is not your fault. You have to also realize, Ra talks about this, you have to realize that the powers that should not be, the evil people that are aware on the dark side, the in service to self side, they use psychic abilities when you're vulnerable, asleep, for just first waking up, the twilight before sleep, the twilight after sleep, where your ego has more voice in your head. They utilize those times to implant bad dreams and negative thoughts. Until you wake up enough to then go, shush, I'm not going to listen to those thoughts. But if your life is really bad and you start getting depressed, they start talking in your ear and plant those thoughts in your head. And that's done on purpose because of who you are and the potential of what you have. In a vulnerable state, they're trying to get you to commit suicide because they can't shut you up and they can't get you to be revealed, so they can recycle you. If they recycle you, you're going to go die, go to the place of healing, go to the place of reflecting, design a new life, and be reborn and revealed. So that's how they do it. They hit the reset button on people. If they can't stop you and they can't stifle you, they get you something to happen to you to where you die or kill yourself by giving you these thoughts through the ego, in your head, through the ego, to make you to go spiral down further and further and further into despair, until you eventually want to end your own life. Nobody's the wiser. She killed herself. No one's going to ever think that was a spell or an assassin. It's just, poor girl. I wonder, her life must have been pretty bad if she decided to kill herself. And you had no idea that was being done to you, that it wasn't your thoughts. And that happens more than people realize. And they utilize that to their advantage. And that does happen more. Probably 78% of the suicides on this planet are not done out of a person's own free will. It's done by them not knowing that they've lost their free will and that they've given it up. And people are talking in their ear and getting them to do it. And it's not other humans talking in their ear. it's other entities talking in their ear psychically to them and putting dread and fear and angst and anxieties and all of this stuff, making them their lives miserable and having them spiral down into a depression. And then they're like, the only way out is to kill yourself. You should take your life. And that's what comes into your brain while you're sleeping. And so then you start spiraling even further. And that's why those thoughts are coming into your head. It's not natural. You're unaware of that. And it's not your fault because it's this place and the psyop that's being done to you by evil people in this place that are trying to stifle anyone who is in any way powerful from waking up and being able to defend against them. Because once you cross a certain boundary, a certain barrier in your ascension, they no longer have that ability to do that to you because you're unaffected by it at that point. And they have to stifle you before you become too strong to resist them. And that's why they do it. That's why they do what they do. Okay. Yeah, Joanne, I used to do that as a kid. She said I bubble up before I sleep every night. When I was a little boy, I've told this story. I don't think I ever told you that, Joanne. When I was a little boy, that's what started my druid training, my Merlin training. I was little. I was probably 4 or 5, maybe 6 at the most. And I had on the side of our house, we had a second like driveway, but it was all river rock. So it wasn't actually paved. And the river rocks were all nice and shiny because they'd been in a river and they were buffed. So I went and got 4 of those river rocks on my own. And every night I stored them under my bed. I was sleeping on old military bunk bed cots. And they had the wood plank underneath the bed so that the person above wouldn't hang down too far because they were small to fit people in, and the person, wouldn't hang down too far. And so I put the rocks on that little plank of wood in between my mattress and the wood. And when I would go to bed after I was put in bed by my mom or my dad, and they would leave the room, I would go underneath my bed and grab those rocks and put one on all 4 of each of the bedposts. And I would create a bubble using those as energy points to the cardinal points. And I would create a circle, a bubble to sleep in. And one night, my father, who was working nights at the time, who never got to see me go to bed, was off that day and decided to come in and say goodnight to me. And I was doing that. And I was like 4 or 5 years old. And he saw me and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm creating a bubble to sleep in." And he said, "Why are you doing that?" And I said, "So that evil can't get to me. They won't be able to get me." My father looked at me and he said, "Where did you learn to do that?" And I said, "Well, it's the right thing to do. I just know how to do it." He said, "No one told you how to do that?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Show me what you're doing." And so I did. And he was like, "Huh. Okay, so why do you think you need to do that?" And I said, "Because there's evil and it tries to get me at night." And my father says, "Is there evil here?" And I said to him, "No, not in the house, but there's evil outside." And he said, "Where?" And I pointed out the window and I said, "In our backyard, if you look right behind our tree out there, we had 2 trees. We had an apricot tree and a black walnut tree. Behind the walnut tree, standing behind the walnut tree, right there, there's evil standing there looking at me right now. And he wants to get me." And my father looked out the window and he says, "Where exactly?" And I said, "The tree right there, the walnut tree, right behind the walnut tree. He's ducking behind the walnut tree right now." And my father says, "You can see that?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Tell me what it looks like." And so I did. I can see it in my mind's eye now. It was a red, glowing, like almost like Pan, like a goat figure with goat feet and was standing up on 2 legs. And the eyes were glowing red. But it was all glowing red, and the eyes were glowing a darker red, like almost like fire. So it was more of an orange red, but the body was all red, glowing. And I explained that to my father, and he said, "You can see that?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Can you?" And my father said, "Yeah, but I was unaware that you can see that." And I said, "Well, I don't want it to get me, so I'm creating a bubble." He says, "All right, son, well, that thing's not going to get you because I'm not going to allow it." He says, "But I was unaware that you knew that. And how did you learn how to do this?" And I said, I got it from God. I know how to do it." And he looked at me and he went, "Huh, okay. You need to go to bed. That thing's not going to get you. I'm not going to allow it to happen. But tomorrow, start your training." And I said, what training? And he said, we'll talk about that tomorrow. Go to bed, son. I love you. And the next day started my my druid training as a Merlin. And then it went on until I was 18 years of age. And then I got the title of Merlin out of it. Had shaman training, had all kinds of training that you don't get in regular Wiccan druid pantheon, knowledge that you can get if you look for it. But I got all kinds of crazy good training from my father. Now I know why I designed this life to have my father. Okay. But I was doing that and I still do it. And sometimes I just do it. I do it before I go live on air to do this show every single time. Create a bubble in over this house, starts from the heart, starts here, goes, expands out, shoves everything out, and I encompass it around the entire house, the entire thing, above and below, the entire thing. No negative energy can get in here. It's all, anything that was in here is shoved out. So you should learn, you guys out there should learn how to do that to make sure that you guys know what you're doing, right? So yeah, you guys have to realize that. And if you don't know how to do that stuff, you should contact myself or someone who can teach you how to do these things, because it's vital. If you're going to be a light worker of any kind, your energy is starting to glow indigo. They can see that, they sense it. Once you start becoming a light worker and you move out of that heart chakra, you start moving into the indigo ray. And so your aura starts to exude an indigo color. And then if you go larger than that, once you get past the indigo, though, and you start getting into the violet range, then you naturally know, you start learning that stuff anyways. But when you start moving into the indigo ray, that chakra, that energy is exuded, and that's what they see. You're going to start picking up disembodied spirits who think you're the light. They don't know where they are. They're confused, and they're going to start making contact with you because they think you know the way to the light, because they just sense it. And you don't know that information yet, but you should. And we would teach that to people as well on how you guys can figure that out, right? All right, let me continue here, and I'm going to read some of the stuff you guys are popping up with stories there. So let's continue here.
75.6 questioner. Is there a better method than that? Ra. I am Ra. There are better methods for those more practiced. For this group, this method as well. 75.7 questioner. I would assume those more practiced would leave their physical bodies and, in the other body, enter the room and practice the banishing ritual. Is this what you mean? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. 75.8 questioner. The instrument would like to know if she can meditate in the hospital without someone holding her hand, and would this be a safe practice? Ra. I am Ra. We might suggest that the instrument may pray with safety but only meditate with another entity's tactile protection. 75.9 questioner. The instrument would like to know what she can do to improve the condition of her back, as she says it could be a problem for the operation. Ra. I am Ra. As we scan the physical complex, we find several factors contributing to one general distortion experienced by the instrument. 2 of these distortions have been diagnosed, 1 has not, nor will the entity be willing to accept the chemicals sufficient to cause cessation of this distortion you call pain. In general, we may say that the sole modality addressing itself specifically to all 3 contributing distortions, which is not now being used, is that of the warmed water, which is moved with gentle force repeatedly against the entire physical complex while the physical vehicle is seated. This would be of some aid if practiced daily after the exercise period. 75.10 questioner. Did the exercise of the fire that was just performed before the session help the instrument? Ra. I am Ra. There was some slight physical aid to the instrument. This will enlarge itself as the practitioner learns/teaches its healing art. Further, there is distortion in the mental/emotional complex which feeds the vital energy towards comfort due to support, which tends to build up the level of vital energy as this entity is a sensitive instrument. 75.11 questioner.
Yeah, before I start that, yeah, Penny said kids know more than we could ever understand. Yeah, that when all children come through, you, me, everybody, when you first come through and you're born, when you're young, you're not completely solidified into this matrix yet, right? So if you're here for the first few lifetimes, right, take 7 to 10 lifetimes usually for a person to ascend to the next level of consciousness beyond the 3rd dimension, the 3rd density. In all things being equal, that would be how it works. But this place has been stuck for a lot longer than that. It's been stuck for at least 77,000 years where nobody has been graduating. That's why we're here. That's why some of us are here. We're here to fix that, to give back the free will, to give back that possibility for a lot of people that are ready to graduate, but they're stuck. So if they're here in one of the first bottom lives and they're not doing spirituality in that particular life first, and say they're going through the normal road, so to speak, then that means that they've just become self-aware, and so they are born on this planet as a human, say. Okay, so at that point you're not aware, and you're going to be veiled, but you're still not completely veiled. So when you come through, they will get veiled faster and solidified into this matrix faster than someone who is, say, on life 12 or 14, because they were only supposed to be here for 10 lives, and they wake up in every life, but they can't graduate, so they keep recycling. Those people will come through and they'll still be partially awake, and they'll resist this matrix for longer. It'll take more years to veil them completely, and they'll still be able to tell you things from a past life, what's going on in the universe. And people that are completely locked into the matrix will go, aren't they cute? Aren't they special? Has a special friend and talks about stuff and God, and just is so cute that they do that. And then eventually that goes away because they get locked into this matrix like everybody else. Then they don't remember it when they get older. So you should listen to children and hear what they're saying. And you can also tell whether they're going in service to self or in service to others by the way they speak as children when they're young. Most adults are oblivious to that because they're locked in the matrix. They're not awake enough to see that. Anyone who's awake enough will look at children and realize what they're doing. Okay, my father was enough to do that. I had a cousin, Virginia, a cousin of mine. We called her Aunt Virginia, but she was actually my third cousin. But she was aware of that when I was young. And I remember her talking to me, and I was talking to her, and I was probably 8 at the time, 9 maybe. And she was looking around while we were talking, and she was stepping up her conversation. And I was able to keep up with her. So she just like went really high vibration with the conversation to see what I knew. And I was just continuing the conversation. And she turned, and no one else noticed that in the room. And she got the attention of my mother and my grandmother and said, have any of you noticed that this little 8-year-old boy talks as if he's 35 years of age? That he is aware, and that he is mature as a 35-year-old should be at 8 years of age. Has anybody noticed that? And my mother was like, yeah, he's so matter of fact. And we call him Professor Precise because he asks all these questions. How come? Why? Why is that? Why is this? Why is that? How come? And my grandmother was like, yeah, he seems to be an old soul. And she looked at them and was like, and she looked at me and she said, old soul? Yeah, to say the least. She said, she looked right at me and she said, they don't know that you're awake, do they? And I said, you know that I'm awake? And she said, yes, I do. You're more awake than I am. And I was like, you are awake though, aren't you? And she said, well, yes, but they don't know it. And I said, no, they don't. They're children. I said this at 8 years of age to her. No, they don't. They're all children. And she was like, wow, what's that got to be like at your age? And I'm like, the same as it is at your age. It's the same. There's no difference. I'm like, when you're awake, you're awake. It doesn't matter how old your physical body is, right? So it's the same. You know what I know. You look at them and you're seeing children. And she was like, wow, you can't talk to anybody like that, though. And I said, no, my dad won't let me. Your dad won't let you. And I'm like, Dad's awake, too. And she looks at my father, and my father was off doing something. And she was like, really? And I'm like, yeah, he pretends he's not, though. Why would he do that? Because he doesn't want people to know. He doesn't want me to tell people of what I know either, because he's afraid that they'll take me from him. She's like, that's good advice. Yeah. And she's like, they don't know that you don't talk to them like this. And I'm like, no, they're children. I don't talk to even my mom this way. They're children. I can't tell them things. They just they won't understand them. She was like, wow, this is weird. I've never talked to somebody this young that is this awake before. And I'm like, yeah, you are. Yeah, you have, but you just didn't know it. Right. So, yeah. Anyway. Okay. Let's continue.
Was the exercise of fire properly done? Ra. I am Ra. The baton is well visualized. The conductor will learn to hear the entire score of the great music of its art. 75.12 Questioner. I assume that if this can be fully accomplished today, that exercise would result in total healing of the distortions of the instrument to such an extent that operations would be unnecessary. Is this correct? Ra. I am Ra. No. 75.13 Questioner. What else is necessary? The instrument's acceptance? Ra. I am Ra. This is correct. The case with this instrument being delicate, since it must totally accept much which the limitations it now experiences cause to occur involuntarily. This is a pre-incarnative choice. 75.14 Questioner. The instrument would like to know why twice at the Benedictus portion of the music that she practices did she experience what she believes to be a psychic attack? Ra. I am Ra.
Right, now they're starting to get into psychic attacks, right? So Fiona said, so a hard life had been on, is that, you're saying government drugs, or are you saying just drugs? With what I've gone through as a child, so that they drug me up to shut me up. Oh, I see. Right. So the things that you went through, yeah, they kept you on drugs so that you couldn't tell people what was going on. Right. But my body was getting very sick, and I just my mind. I tell you, my soul kept fighting. Good for you. This is not life, and I don't want my adult kids to go through and see any more of this bullshit. Right. So yeah, you have to break that chain of the cycle so that none of that happens. Right. That's just poop. When you go through that, you have to recover from that. Right. Hopefully you see yourself as a survivor, not a victim. Get out of that victim state of mind and realize that you're a survivor, and survive that despite them. Screw those people. Survive it. You survived it. You're alive. You're aware of it. You're telling about it now in the chat. And so don't let them still have an effect on you. And yeah, and keep your kids from having that happen. Jerry said, my son last year came to me and asked me in the car on the way home and said, do you believe in God? I said, yes, of course. I asked, do you? He said, yeah. And when I speak up in the school of believing, that I get teased, of course, that is what happens to him, right? It was another reason why my father was like, you can't talk about this kind of stuff because they won't understand it. So Sherry goes on to say it was a game on it was game on from there each night. We pray and fall asleep with the Bible, and every night playing. And my son just sees so much that he even blows my mind, and he's ahead of himself. No, it's good that you were able to see that in him and encouraged him. And more than likely, he was unveiled or partially unveiled and unveiling. And he was reaching out to you. It was cool that he reached out to you, because he was having problems in school where they were making fun of him, trying to basically stifle him. And he reached out to you to ask you, do you believe in God? And this is what's happening to me. And I'm glad that you saw that. I'm glad that you came up with a solution to assist him. And then I'm sure you at some point said, yeah, just don't tell them about God right now till you get older. My father was like, when you're a kid, when you're young, if you speak like an adult, the adults are going to come after you. And so by the time I was 11, the government tried to recruit me to join their Skunk Works program and go into the Air Force and the Junior Air Force Academy. And by the time I was 18, I'd be a lieutenant and then a captain right after that. And by the time I was 25, I would have been a colonel in the Air Force. And they wanted me to go to work with them and basically work for them and utilize me and my skills to give them a hand up, money, weapons, and whatever else they could get from me. So I said no at 11 years of age, and they hounded me until I was like 25 to 27 years of age to continue that. So yeah, keep encouraging your children to not buy into this matrix, to not get caught in the if there's DEI programs in your country, don't let them get caught in that stuff, and because that's another way of confusion and trying to control people, right? Right. Yeah, Cassie said, I so feel your story because I've been through that myself. I'm always here, and both of you, and you want to share your stories. Yes, agreed, Cassie. So if you guys want to share your stories, if you don't feel comfortable talking to me, maybe you'll talk to Cassie. And if you want to share your stories and not in public, and work with somebody, you can, maybe Cassie, if you're not sure that you want to work with a man, if you want to work with a woman, Cassie's available, if not myself or Cassie and I both, or maybe somebody else that's within our group that you might want to talk to and work with, because this is what we do. We help people. That's what we're here for. We help people, right? Good. Yeah, Fiona said, I am a survivor. I speak every day the truth, no matter what people think of me or hear of me, and I am me, and I will speak. Good. We tell people and teach people, Paul, one of the creeds when I was knighted as a Roman Catholic knight, when you go through the training for that, one of the lessons that you learn is to defend the defenseless and things like that. But they also, one of your creeds is speak the truth, even if it leads to your death. So you have to get into that mindset, and it's not an easy thing to do, to get into the mindset of speaking the truth, because it's the right thing to do, especially because it could be detrimental to your health to do so. In some instances, you have to be willing to die and have nothing to lose by doing that. And that's a hard lesson to learn for some people who won't do that, but they teach you why you need to know, why you need to be in that mindset, because some people can't be, and they wish they could. And if you will stand for them, they'll stand with you. And so you have to offer that to people who may not know you're offering it to them. You may be offering it to people that you don't know need you to offer it to them. But if you don't stand, they won't stand. And so if you always speak the truth, even if it leads to your death, then you're going to be more apt to stand for people at all times. And that's one of the creeds as a knight, to be knighted, is that you will defend the defenseless first and foremost, and speak the truth. Be upright so that God may love thee, first of all. And being upright means centered, focused, balanced, and in service to others 100%. And therefore you are upright. Okay. And those are the creeds that you're taught and you have to be chosen to be knighted. You can't volunteer to be knighted. You can volunteer to start the schooling and be a brother, a monk, a brother knight, a monk, and not knighted yet. And you can do that, but you have to be invited. So they have to be aware, because of the debauchery, the difficulties of the Templar Knights, where you had some of them, like in the past, when, say, the Crusaders were going on. If you've seen the movie The Kingdom of Heaven, that's based on true story, based on real events. And you had Guy de Lucion and his brother, who were evil, what they call robber knights. They were in service to self. Because of that and what that caused, and the war that caused over Jerusalem, where so many people, women, children, civilians, and soldiers in all those armies died because of evil people. When after that point, most of the knights were dissolved from the Catholic Church altogether, and it was only 160 years ago, 170 years ago now, that the Knights of Columbus and the Templar Knights reorganized, but they were outside of the church. And the church, and other countries too, because there are other kingdoms that have knights in them that are still not part of the Roman Catholic Church. Although the Knights of Columbus, Pope John Paul II brought them back in as the only holy order. But you still have the Swiss Knights, you still have the Salmation Knights, the Knights of Malta, and a few others that are still around that are not attached to the Roman Catholic Church, that are attached to the Roman Catholic Church. But are being pulled back into the church now after 1,200 years. But now you have to be chosen, and you have to go through a process to determine that you are in fact in service to others to become a knight. You can't just become a knight anymore. And so evil people are not in these orders. They really have to hide to get into these orders now because of the same reasoning. So because of that, you have a completely different mindset in all of these orders now that are knights around the world. That you don't have robber knights, you don't have thieving knights. That's why you don't hear anybody getting in trouble that are knights, because it's very rare that you find somebody who was able to infiltrate and become an actual knight and get knighted that is in service to others. So there's safeguards now where people are keeping that out of the way, but that doesn't mean that the priests aren't still evil. So you got to be careful with that. But it's rare that you find the other stuff. So I love that people that don't have any religious background or in some organization like that, you guys are strong enough to resist and speak your truth, because that guys like me who see that in you guys are so happy to see individuals that have learned or evolved to a place of resistance of this evil that is controlling this matrix, and despite them or to spite them, standing up and defending yourself and speaking your truth and having the courage to do that and to talk your piece and be your authentic self and the best that you can be, because who knows how close we are to our actual authentic self when we're down here in the third dimension, but we can still be as good as we can be, trying to get better every day, and live that way, in that way of life. So I venerate you and I appreciate you for being able to do that. And anyone like you out there that's hearing my voice, if you're not already doing it, don't be afraid to stand. You can pick your battles. You don't have to start a revolution and get yourself crucified and become a martyr, but you can pick your battles and find that courage to stand up to this tyranny, wherever it is, whether it's your relatives or people in your city or friends or family or your governments or whatever. You don't have to go and engage them in a physical way with a physical revolution. Everyone thinks that there has to be a war that you have to fight in a physical way, and that's just not where the war is won. The war of attrition is won from you ascending and being your best self and being an example for other people who are in service to others to also stand up and do those things. Okay. So I appreciate all of you who might be hearing my voice that maybe don't get those praise, that are doing the same thing in some small way in the little town you live in or wherever it is that you are around the world, listening to my voice. We know you're out there. We know you're doing it, and to continue to do what you're doing, because it's making a difference more than you'll ever know. And you will know about that difference that you're making, but you may not get to see it in this lifetime, but you will know about it eventually. And I know that some people hate to hear that, because I used to say that what'll be rewarded in the afterlife, humbug, right? But you will get to know just exactly what you've done and how it's helped people at some point. It may not be in this lifetime, but you will get the praise for that from the other side. All right, let's continue here while I look at your guys' stuff that you're saying in the chat.
This is not a minor query. We shall first remove the notations which are minor. In the vibrating, which you call singing, of the portion of what this instrument hallows as the mass which immediately precedes that which is the chink called the hosanna, there is an amount of physical exertion required that is exhausting to any entity. This portion of which we speak is termed the sanctus. We come now to the matter of interest. When the entity Jehoshua decided to return to the location called Jerusalem for the holy days of its people, it turned from work mixing love and wisdom and embraced martyrdom, which is the work of love without wisdom. The hosanna, as it is termed, and the following benedictus, is that which is the written summation of what was shouted as Jehoshua came into the place of its martyrdom. The general acceptance of this shout, Hosanna to the Son of David. Hosanna in the highest. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord, by that which is called the church, has been a misstatement of occurrence which has been, perhaps, unfortunate, for it is more distorted than much of the so-called mass. There were two factions present to greet Jehoshua. Firstly, a small group of those which hoped for an earthly king. However, Jehoshua rode upon an ass, stating by its very demeanor that it was no earthly king and wished no fight with Roman or Sadducee. The greater number were those which had been instructed by rabbi and elder to make jest of this entity, for those of the hierarchy feared this entity, who seemed to be one of them, giving respect to their laws and then, in their eyes, betraying those time-honored laws and taking the people with it. The chink for this instrument is this subtle situation which echoes down through your space/time, and, more than this, the place the hosanna holds is the harbinger of that turning to martyrdom. We may speak only generally here. The instrument did not experience the full force of the greeting which it correctly identified during the hosanna, due to the intense concentration necessary to vibrate its portion of that composition. However, the benedictus in this particular rendition of these words is vibrated by one entity. Thus the instrument relaxed its concentration and was immediately open to the fuller greeting. 75.15 Questioner.
That's okay, Fiona. If you go into the Law of One chat, Peter, who was here earlier, he's also dyslexic. So we do a lot of voice clips to one another, knowing that people are dyslexic that are in there. So when we're in here, you have to type or speak to your phone to get the words on, right? But if you go into our group, our chat group on Messenger, if you join that group or you're already in there, I don't know if you are, you can do voice clips and people will realize, and you can tell them in the voice clip that you're having a hard time with words, and people will send you voice clips back and forth so that you're okay with that. We do that with Peter all the time. He'll send voice clips and then we'll talk back to him. That way he doesn't have to worry about having his phone have to say the words to him, because he has a app that will read when you text, but that sometimes doesn't translate right because the computers don't get it right. Same thing when you're speaking, sometimes they don't get it right on the typing. So yeah, I get that. Yeah, there's Peter right now, right? So Peter knows what I'm talking about. So, and he'll tell people I couldn't read, because if he doesn't have his app or his phone that has the app on it, he'll say, I couldn't read what you just texted me. Please give me a voice clip. And so everyone is used to that already in the Law of One chat. So if you want to join that group, let Peter or Cassie know if you're not already in there, and we'll get you in there. And then know that when you're in there, you can do that, and people will realize, especially if you tell them if they don't understand that you have the same problem that Peter does. Nobody's going to in any way judge you. They'll immediately start talking to you in voice clips because they understand that you have an issue with the typing, and you'll see that. And sometimes you'll see that people like myself and Cassie will sometimes type in there, but other times we just start talking on in there and leaving voice clips, because we know that there are some people in there that have problems with reading, and they're being left out of the chat because they can't read, like you were just saying, they have a hard time reading the stuff. Peter's the same way. When he's in here, sometimes he has a hard time seeing what other people are saying here because he's dyslexic. So yeah, just know that we'll work with you in that way, because you have that disability, and that kind of sucks because that hinders, because most of these groups just have printed words and they don't accommodate that. We do accommodate that because we're aware of that, because one of our own, Peter, has that issue, and he's kind enough not to get angry with people if they don't know that about him, but they're usually pretty kind in our group, always, as a matter of fact, that if he says, please send a voice clip because I can't understand what you just typed, that people will automatically just start sending voice clips to him. So if you would like, tell Cassie or Peter and get you in the group if you're not already in there. But just know that if you are already in there, start doing voice clips and you won't have to worry about that, because we are aware and we're okay with that. We don't get bothered by it. We don't make fun of people for that. We just automatically just break into voice clips back and forth. Okay. All right, let's continue.
The chink then, as I understand it, was originally created by the decision of Jesus to take the path of martyrdom. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is, in relation to this instrument, quite correct. It is aware of certain overbalances towards love, even to martyrdom, but has not yet, to any significant degree, balanced these distortions. We do not imply that this course of unbridled compassion has any fault, but affirm its perfection. It is an example of love which has served as beacon to many. For those who seek further, the consequences of martyrdom must be considered, for in martyrdom lies the end of the opportunity, in the density of the martyr, to offer love and light. Each entity must seek its deepest path. 75.16 Questioner, let me see if I understand, then, how the Orion group finds a chink in this distortion. The entity identifying, or having a distortion of any amount toward martyrdom is then opened by its free will to the aid of the Orion group to make it a martyr. Am I correct? Ra, I am Ra. You are correct only in the quite specialized position in which the instrument finds itself, that is, of being involved in and dedicated to work which is magical or extremely polarized in nature. This group entered this work with polarity, but virtual innocence as to the magical nature of this polarity it is beginning to discover. 75.17 Questioner, how was the Orion entity able to act through this linkage of the Hosanna? Was this simply because of the mental distortion of the instrument at this period of time, because of that suggested by the music, or was it a more physical or more metaphysical link from the time of Christ? Ra, I am Ra. Firstly, the latter supposition is false. This entity is not linked with the entity, Jehoshua. Secondly, there is a most unique circumstance. There is an entity which has attracted the attention of an Orion light being. This is extremely rare. This entity has an intense devotion to the teachings and example of the one it calls Jesus. This entity then vibrates in song a most demanding version, called the Mass in B minor by Bach, of this exemplary votive complex of sound vibrations. The entity is consciously identifying with each part of this mass. Only thusly was the chink made available. As you can see, it is not an ordinary occurrence and would not have happened had any ingredient been left out: exhaustion, bias in belief complexes, attention from an Orion entity, and the metaphysical nature of that particular set of words. 75.18 Questioner: what was the Orion entity's objective with respect to the entity you spoke of who, in a demanding manner, sings the Mass? Ra, I am Ra. The Orion entity wishes to remove the instrument. 75.19 Questioner: is this a fourth or a fifth density entity? Ra, I am Ra. This instrument is being greeted by a fifth density entity which has lost some polarity due to its lack of dictatorship over the disposition of the instrument's mind/body/spirit or its yellow ray activated physical complex. 75.20 Questioner: you are speaking of this other person now that is singing the Mass? This is correct? Ra, I am Ra. No. 75.21 Questioner: I think there was a little miscommunication here. The other person who sings the Mass who helped in creating this chink you said was also greeted by an Orion entity, and my question was what density was that entity that greets the person who sings the Mass? Ra, I am Ra. We did not speak of any entity but the instrument. 75.22 Questioner: okay. I misunderstood. I thought you were speaking of someone else in the singing group who had been the one you were speaking of regarding the identification with the singing. The entire time we were speaking only of the instrument Carla? Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 75.23 Questioner: I am sorry for the confusion. Sometimes, as you say, sound vibration complexes are not very adequate, and I'm sorry. You made the statement in a previous session that the true adept lives more and more as it is. Will you explain and expand upon that statement? Ra, I am Ra. Each entity is the creator. The entity, as it becomes more and more conscious of itself, gradually comes to the turning point at which it determines to seek either in service to others or in service to self. The seeker becomes the adept when it has balanced with minimal adequacy the energy centers red, orange, yellow, and blue with the addition of the green for the positive, thus moving into indigo work. The adept then begins to do less of the preliminary or outer work, having to do with function, and begins to affect the inner work which has to do with being. As the adept becomes a more and more consciously crystallized entity, it gradually manifests more and more of that which it always has been since before time, that is, the one infinite creator. 75.24 Questioner:
Okay, so right there, in that statement, at the end of that statement, right, first of all, when you start moving in service to others side, then you move up through the bottom three chakras, through the heart chakra, to the blue indigo ray. Remember what I was saying earlier about as soon as you start moving up in being in service to others, that you start moving into the indigo ray, so that your light changes to that color. So your aura picks up the indigo color. Okay, and then you become a target for other people at that point, right? But then at the end of that conversation right there, Ra had the reveal right there that was 5D thinking, right? That not only do you become self-aware, not only then you move up to not only being self-aware, but being aware that I am an immortal soul and that I am a co-creator here, but going past that to the infinite wisdom of I am in fact the creator. Okay? So all of us are the creator. This place is the creator. All of this is, then here, let's go past that now. Ra didn't go there. Let's go past that to 60, 70 thinking or ideology or vibration, that all of this is actually an illusion that's happening in the mind of the creator. This is a daydream. This is not real. None of it. You, me, none of this. We are all the creator, imagining ourselves as these individuals. Some of you were probably not ready for that. Okay, and that's okay. But I'm still pulling you there anyways to get that into your mindset, to get it into your head through osmosis. So some of you might reject that idea and go, what? No, and hold on to a Christian upbringing or a Muslim upbringing, because none of those teach you any of that. It's this place and a place called heaven, and you do good here and you have one life, and if you blow yourself up with this bomb strapped onto you, you'll get a bunch of virgins there. or you're either going to go to here or you're going to go to hell, and that's it. That's all there is. There's two places that you go. You're down here, and if you're good, you go to heaven, and if you're not, you go to hell, and then it's over, and you get wings, and you become this little teeny fat thing that flies around with wings. Or if you're really lucky, you get to be a piece of stone. You get to be a piece of plaster standing in the presence of God for all of eternity, frozen like a statue. You never get to do anything. Can't communicate with anybody, can't talk to anybody, can't eat, can't poop, can't drink. You're just there. And you're so happy to just be in the presence of God. And that's the ultimate thing that you can do in heaven, is just to be sitting there like this for all of eternity. And that's what they teach you in most of these religions. Not a joke, okay? So that is actually made up, fake, doesn't exist. Period. There is no place called heaven. Heaven is a place that is down here on earth. Heaven is a place that is in you. You either reside in heaven or you reside in hell, because you're either in service to others, in which case, when you get to the indigo and above that in your spirituality, your life will become heaven. Or you're in service to self, in which case you're residing in the red, the orange, or the yellow chakras only, and then you reside in hell, because you reside in a place that is the farthest away from the light as you can be, and you don't believe in it. You don't believe there's a God. You don't believe in heaven. You don't believe in hell. You don't believe in any of that. You don't believe that anything exists other than this place, and there is nothing else. And then you don't even believe there's any other lifetime besides one. One and done. Do what I can, get what I can get while I'm here, no matter who I have to hurt, because it doesn't matter anyways, because there is nothing that's going to hold me for ransom over doing bad things to people. And that's why people are serial killers, serial rapists, and serial murderers. Those people believe that to be evil, they have to be ultra evil, because they actually believe in the ascension, and they're actually trying to ascend on the evil side. And that's why they're being as evil as they can be. And then others are just demented, and they're just doing crazy shit because they're cuckoo, because they had traumas and things drive them to that. But the last part of what Ra just said there was expanding your consciousness to 5D and above, thinking that you are the creator. Okay? That was pulling you. While you're reading that, some people just blow past that and go, yeah, okay, so we're God. And they don't realize the ramifications and how actually big that is compared to this place in the Matrix, that is not even allowing you to believe that you are something that is immortal, because that's what this place tries to do to you. Not just the evil people in it, but they're also working with this place trying to do that. Okay? So you have to realize those things. And that's part of the ascension. And you won't believe it if I say that to you if you're in the lower three chakras. You'll go, okay, he's just making things up. Because you don't have access to that memory. You don't have access to that knowledge. So therefore, and you will never have access to it if you're in service to self. So you have to refuse and repudiate what I just said. Because your entire existence depends on that not existing. Do you see? So you will never allow yourself to fathom the idea of anything above that, because you're in service to self. But people who are in service to others, if you're just starting to pierce the veil, you still might resist that, because you're still holding on to the religions of this place and what they're teaching, and it's not ascension. They're not teaching you how to ascend in almost any religion anymore on this earth, okay? And there's a reason for that, and that's to keep you stuck in this place, and that's why Ra is talking about that between 1981 and 1984 as best they can. All right, let's continue here.
Answer to this question probably has to do with our distorted view of time. But I see wanderers in this density who have come from 5th or 6th density. It seems to me that they should already be of a relatively high degree of adeptness and must follow a slightly or somewhat different path back to the adeptness that they previously had in a higher density and get as close to it as they can in 3rd density. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. Your query is less than perfectly focused. We shall address the subject in general. There are many wanderers whom you may call adepts who do no conscious work in the present incarnation. It is a matter of attention. One may be a fine catcher of your game sphere, but if the eye is not turned as this sphere is tossed, then perchance it will pass the entity by. If it turned its eyes upon the sphere, catching would be easy. In the case of wanderers which seek to recapitulate the degree of adeptness which each had acquired previous to this life experience, we may note that even after the forgetting process has been penetrated, there is still the yellow ray activated body which does not respond as does the adept which is of a green or blue ray activated body. Thusly, you may see the inevitability of frustrations and confusion due to the inherent difficulties of manipulating the finer forces of consciousness through the chemical apparatus of the yellow ray activated body. 75.25 Questioner. You probably can't answer this, but are there any suggestions you could give with respect to the instrument's coming hospital experience that could be of benefit for her? Ra. I am Ra.
Wait, I think we're going to stop there and back up a question. Let me see what number that is.
Activated body. Thusly, you may see the inevitability of frustrations and confusion due to the
I think
inherent
we'll back up with a
difficulties of
couple questions
manipulating
and
the
start
finer
next week on
forces of
that.
consciousness through the chemical apparatus of the yellow ray activated body. 75.25 Questioner.
Okay, so we'll start at 2-3. We'll go back 2 questions. We'll start at question 23 next week, because I want to go back and discuss what that last question that I didn't discuss right there, where they were talking about the activation of the different colored chakras right there. So we'll go back a couple of questions, and I may even go back to 20 and start at 20 and come forward next week. Okay. So I wanted to stop there because it is getting later and I'm going to have to get off of here because I'm going to have to get dinner cooking and get my mom in the shower so we can eat dinner at a respectable time, because it is 5:45 over here in the state of California. So, right, Cassie, and that's why I wanted to rewind that, because she said, again, balance in self, right? We live in the place of duality, and the people who go here, I'll put it up on the screen and read it to those listening on the MP3 broadcast, right? So balance in self, we live in a place of duality, and people go us what is right and wrong, or tell us what is right and wrong, when you fully realize nothing is bad, or going in all is experience. Yeah, there is no right, there is no wrong, there is the only experience, and that's 5D thinking. It's above 4D thinking. That's 5D thinking, looking down on this ecosystem that Cassie's talking about. That there is no right and wrong, there is just experience. And people are like, no, what? No, it's evil to kill, and it's evil it is evil. That is the purpose. That's what you're supposed to learn from that. The people who are self-serving do those bad things, right? So, well, that's wrong, and we need to stop them. No, that's 3D thinking, that you think there's a war going on between good and evil. The only war that's supposed to be going on between good and evil is your choice to be either in service to self or in service to others internally. That's the shadow work that you're supposed to be doing. And then your healing and becoming objective with yourself is the shadow work that you're supposed to be doing. And that's what Cassie's referring to here when she's saying that there is no right and wrong. There is only that balance. There's only experience in that balance, right? Nothing is bad or is going, in all is experience and lessons for our souls. Getting back to what Cassie was saying, reading what she was saying, you will see the necessity for this beautiful dance that is our experience here in this time on Earth, right? And that's the truth of that. So that's it. But Cassie's moving into 5D thinking there and explaining that to you. So that's actually pulling you to the real 5D and the wisdom, because that's what you learn in 5D in real life in fifth density. Outside of the third density, outside of the fourth density and fifth density is the wisdom, and that's all you learn in that plane of existence, which is, say, akin to 3 here in this 3D. In 5D is the place of wisdom, and you move into the place of wisdom and love, and you start in understanding. And by that time, you only have mostly a light body. But she's absolutely right. So there is no right and wrong. There is only experience and lesson, and that's the truth of this place. That's the reality about reality. That's the truth of this place. But most of you don't know that until you move past the indigo ray into the crown chakra, or at least the third eye chakra. And then that's the place of wisdom. So you'll start to understand that concept, what Cassie is talking about right there. But that is the truth of this place. You just don't know it yet. So you're supposed to evolve. And this is what Cassie's contention is, and what Raul was talking about and what I was talking about. That you're supposed to evolve from being self-aware for the very first time to learning your heart, and that's learning love and the beginning of love and wisdom and understanding as opposed to understanding. And then you move into your own strength, and that's the voice, and where you gain your voice and you gain your power, and you learn that. You learn to be independent, you learn to be yourself, and that's where you gain your voice, and that's the indigo ray. And then you move from that to the third eye, and that's when you start getting into wisdom and knowledge and understanding. And that's that concept of when you realize that this is an ecosystem and that it's a perfect, beautiful ecosystem and a dance. And if Jacqueline Taylor were here, she would start crying to tell you about it, because it is beautiful and it is perfect, and there is no right and wrong. There just is experience and learning, because that's what's supposed to be happening here, and that is what's happening here. Everything serves the all, and you learn from everything, whether it's a good deed or a bad deed, whether it's holier than thou or eviler than thou. That's what you learn from, are those archetypes and everything in between. There's 7 major arcana, 7 major archetypes, 7 major chakras, centers, but there's also sub-chakras, 7 major logos, and then there's sub-logos, okay? So everything that bends on your body has a chakra in it. Every knuckle, okay? Every knuckle has a chakra. Your wrist, your elbows, your shoulders, even your waist. You can bend at the waist. Your neck bends for your head. There's the chakras. You have 33 vertebrae. Each one of those is a chakra, is a sub-chakra, okay? So we have a lot of chakras in our body, but everyone only focuses on the 7. That's it. But we have everything that bends. So every knuckle and every toe, your ankles, your feet actually has a knuckle here like your hand does right here. Your hand has a big knuckle here that bends this. Do you see? That's a knuckle, right? And then there's individuals here. Your toes are the same way. You have a big knuckle and the individual knuckles on your toes. Then you have the individual knuckles on your toes. Then you have your ankles. Then you have your knees. Then you have your hips, right? So all of those places that bend have an energy center, which is a chakra, sub-logos. And your spine has a sub-logos. We're even smaller. All of those are energy centers. That's why the Kundalini goes up your spine, because there are 33 of them. Okay. And that 33 of them protect your tree of life. Do you see? So that's why the Kundalini and the Kunda buffer energy goes up and down your spine, is because that is your tree of life. Okay. It's also the sword and the stone, by the way, the sword and the stone from the book, The Sword and the Stone, which was the legend of King Arthur. The sword and the stone is your tree of life, your vertebrae, and it goes down. And what does it go down to? It goes down to Bethlehem. It goes down to the coccyx bone, which the coccyx bone is literally looks like a tip of a sword. It's all the fused vertebrae at the bottom of your spine that hooks to your tailbone, and it's actually literally like a point of a sword tip, and that is literally the sword going into the stone of the coccyx. That's the sword and the stone. And only those who are worthy can pull that energy out, pull out the sword of making, or pull out the Excalibur, and you wield Excalibur, which controls this universe, which controls everything. And that's the secret to the Christ oil within you, and going up and down your spine with that Kundalini fire, the Kundalini, Kunda buffer, Kundalini being masculine energy, Kunda buffer meaning being feminine energy, that goes up your spine and illuminates to the heavens, and illuminates your tree of life. There's probably too much information for some of you right now, but most of you who are still here listening to this more than likely understand that, more importantly. Okay, guys, I love you guys. Right? Fiona said I have goosebumps. Thank you. I love you guys. Have a great night. I'll see some of you in the chat. If you're not already in the Law of One chat and you want to come in there, because we have conversations 24 hours a day in there. Not everybody, but we have people from around the world. So when some of us over here in America are sleeping, the people in Australia are awake, right? And so, but we have conversations there, and then we do things off camera and work with people in there, in that chat. And we also, like I do a thing on Wednesday where I do a Q&A off camera so that you can have a smaller setting and you can actually ask questions. And I do it on Zoom, and it's not recorded and it's not on air, and everybody can come in and ask me questions. And Cassie shows up every now and then, sometimes every week, and she also answers questions. Jacqueline shows up every now and then, Jacqueline Taylor, and she'll answer questions. And we're starting to put together a team where Cassie was planning, but she's been having some health issues herself. She's planning on also doing a day where she puts together a class for people, a workshop to do specific things that she's working on to work with people. And we're starting to get some other stuff together to do the same thing. And penny here in the thing today. We should start doing that again, Leo, where we're teaching people how to defend themselves when they start waking up. So there's a possibility, more than likely going to be another class that we'll be doing at some point, and having somebody instruct in there to start getting people together to help teach you how to defend yourself and how to create a bubble to be able to protect yourself from negative energy and people trying to do damage to you. Okay, so this year we're expanding into that and moving into that workshops, and we're going to be changing the name of the Law of One, which I've been using to get people to kind of wake up and draw them in to this, to me and to others here. So we'll all be doing this probably until we finish the Law of One. But the Law of One chat, we may change, or we may create another chat to move people into for these different work cycles that we're going to be working with. We're not exactly sure what we're going to do. We have a couple of groups that we might rename and use for those specific things. But right now we're working out of the Law of One class chat on Messenger to do that. And we haven't fully expanded yet. We're still assembling our team. And because we're still assembling the team, that slowed us down a little bit, just the timeline. And it's 2025 is supposed to be the year we're supposed to do that anyway. So we're getting that together, and we'll be pushing that forward going into 2026. So there'll be more things available. And we're already starting to do things like Jacqueline Taylor is working, and Cassie's working with her, and they're doing Cassie's in the class with her. Jacqueline Taylor has a class where she's working with Ascended Masters, and she has workbooks and a book that you can get to do this, because she's certified. And I don't know all the details of that. You'd have to talk to Cassie about that, or Jacqueline Taylor about all the details of what they're doing. I just know that it's good stuff, and that they're doing meditations and work, and you're going to be communicating with and working with archangels and ascended masters and all kinds of really, really cool stuff. And it's Sophia something, but I don't know what it is. Cassie could maybe throw out a little bit of that here in the chat so people could see that. And then you guys that are not in the Law of One chat, or Law of One class chat, maybe we'll go there, because Jacqueline just was posting about it yesterday. And if you ask her or Cassie in there, they'll give you the information on that. But so we are expanding. We just don't have all of our teachers assembled yet, guides assembled yet to teach these classes to you guys. But that is ultimately what we're doing, and expanding into that to give this information to the world, to help all of you guys wake up, know how to defend yourselves until you learn the natural abilities to do so, which does happen, and expand your consciousness into this beautiful realm of being in service to others, and the knowledge that you gain, which is in fact universal. I don't own it. No one owns it. It is information that you will find even without us helping you, that everyone is supposed to find. It's just been taken from you in this place by people who are aware of it, who are in service to self, who are not letting you find it and discouraging you from finding it in every way they can, with programming, television, internet, songs on the radio, books, everything they can do, getting into your dreams and giving you hostile intentions and negative intentions to keep you and your life from ever allowing you to have time in your life to ponder, to question, to think for yourself, and to start ascension. They don't want you to do that. They want to keep you as a slave so they get richer and have control of you, this matrix, and this world. That's what they've been doing for thousands of years. You're unaware of it until you are aware of it. And when you are aware of it, you can't unsee it. And they want to shut you up. When you get to that point where you can't unsee it, then you usually start talking about it. And they want to shut you up if you start talking about it, because they can't have you telling them. Can't have them telling you. You can't have you. They can't have you telling the masses. All right, guys. I love you guys. I will talk to you guys later. Have a great night. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show.